I'm good.
LJL Spring Split 2021. Gentlemen, I am your host, Alex, otherwise known as X by Master Swan on the internet, and I, of course, am joined by my illustrious color and play-by-play commentator, Nymera, and Initialize. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
And I can tell it's the first stream of the year because for a second there, I actually had us muted, but that's okay. I got most of that. It's fine. Please let us know if there are any audio issues in chat, of course, but it's really good to be back on the casting pulpit and hopefully bringing you that actual audio to you.
Hopefully.
It's brilliant to be back, audio issues aside. Thank you for the intro, Maswan. I have missed all these catchphrases, just the LJL in general. It's been too long. I've been itching to be casting this stuff all over again.
Oh, we all have been. We've already done 2 episodes of our podcast already out right now. You can find it over on our YouTube or on all audio major streaming platforms. First plug already in the first minute or 2 of the production. Love it. Gentlemen, though, as always, quick coverage and recap for anyone joining us right now this moment. We will be bringing you live coverage of the last 4 games of the LJL Spring Split, that being Burning Core facing off against the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks Gaming, followed by Crest Gaming Act facing off against the Hawks. Then we have Axis facing off against Crest Gaming Act, and then to end us out, it's the Hawks facing Axis. We will be doing live coverage of the first 4 games that you might have already watched on the LJL official channel, but we will be doing that tomorrow at 10 a.m. However, question in hand, gentlemen. Our first game of coverage for 2021, it's going to be Burning Core versus the Hawks. And there's a lot of different ways that these 2 teams decide to play the off-season, isn't it? Let's go over to Nymera to talk about Burning Core.
So, Burning Core, this is a team which honestly surprised us in playoffs last summer. Now, now you say, why do you think that? They went out in the first round. Well, they did, but they went out in first round to Detonation Focus Me, one of our best teams in the region, and though they struggled in summer, they looked dangerous coming into playoffs. Not only did they lose to them, they only lost in that 3-2 5-game series, which was very, very close fought. So we haven't seen them since that series. We don't know what their benchmark of power is. There's so many moving parts and questions as to what's really going to happen with this team. And of course, they did have some roster changes. You are right about that. They brought in Gadearu to that mid lane instead of Yu-Gi-Oh, who was that rookie mid laner. So we had a lot of praise for Gadearu on his year in Axes. Lots of things that could go very well for Burning Core this year.
Yeah, Burning Core had changed up a little bit. However, let's go over to the Hawks with Initialize, because that's been a complete rebuild to a degree.
Not even to a degree. They've managed to keep a hold of Tussle and Dasher, but in comes Appermen, formerly of Sengoku Gaming. In comes Zenit, who is a bot laner over from the LCK, who used to be on the likes of KT Rolster. And also they've picked up Axis' Corporal, who really impressed us last year with some of his high-end support play, up there with the likes of Proud over on Burning Core that we just mentioned, up there with Gang and with Ryanair. So really excited to see what this roster can do. It'll be their first showing debut as the roster. Obviously the Hawks came in replacing Unsold Stuff Gaming into the LJL last year, and honestly put a lot of money in and kind of collapsed. We had a lot of faith in what looked like an all-star roster, and it just didn't really work out. Summer, we saw some improvement. They brought in some interesting coaches, and things looked to kind of revitalize somewhat. It just wasn't enough. And this year, second year in the LJL, a little bit more knowledge about how esports and how their org wants to work. And with a revamped roster, maybe we can see something more out of the Hawks. And this, at least on paper, looks pretty good. But we said that last year too.
So, I mean, gentlemen, we've already given our power rankings. Before we go a bit further, what are your actual predictions for this match individually? I'll go to Initialize first for this one.
I actually quite rate Burning Core, so I'm gonna go with Burning Core on this one.
Okay, and Nymera?
So I came into this broadcast today thinking, I'm probably going to predict the Hawks. I'm probably going to predict the Hawks. And I look at Dash and I look at Toss and I think, oh, that's pretty nice. But then I look at the other team and I'm like, oh, they do have Ray Fark. He's pretty good. Gadearu is pretty good. There is a lot of questions about that bot lane. I am still going to go with the Hawks. for this game. I think that Zen and Corporal, really love Corporal's play on Axes last year, and Corporal, we talked to him in bits and pieces because he is fluent in English and he has been part of our community to a certain extent. I'm a very big fan of his play, and I think that Apperman versus Rayfarki is probably where this game is going to be decided, though, given the champion pool of the top lane meta.
And we saw that matchup a fair few times in the spring and summer split of 2020. That was a matchup that actually went pretty 50-50 when it was Burning Core versus Sengoku. However, different junglers this time coming
Yes.
into it. Once for Burning Core on this one. Over on the other side for the Hawks, who's their jungler?
Tussle, yeah.
Tussle, of course. Who do we
so
actually
weird. It's so
think?
strange because it's like you've got Apperman, you're like, oh, it's got to be blank, right?
be
'Cause it's
blank.
like,
I was
no,
like,
there's
no.
not. Apperman's left
anymore.
Sengoku. First game of the season, got to get used to it.
Blank's left the LJL. He's left us for the KT Rollsters. What we gonna do?
I mean, that's a fair swap, right, for us?
Fair enough.
Anyway, gentlemen, moving forward, going out throughout the rest of this is two completely different narratives that these teams have kind of taken. We've got Burning Core with the rebuild, except for Gadiadu, that's just a new player. And over on the other side for the Hawks, it's two members. Let's build around these two guys and rebuild. Battle of the former Axis players, which is interesting here.
Yeah.
Not many of the Axis players are still around from the 2020 season, sadly. So,
They've been
Corporal and
scattered to the
Gadiadu-
winds.
Yes, very much so.
But I think it's probably fair to say that the two players that are here are two of the ones that we really put our finger on and said, you guys look really good, even with some of the roster struggling. Gary Aru and Corporal really were the stars in that roster, look like the diamonds somewhat in the rough. And we're both pretty happy for them to come in and say, look, this is a chance on organizations on rosters which look perhaps a little bit more competitive to really stretch their muscles, show us what they're made of. And I'm excited to see what both these guys can do. I said I favor Burning Core partly because they have got a little bit more inbuilt synergy. It's only the one piece of the puzzle that's been switched out, whereas the Hawks, a lot more moving parts, might take them a little longer to synergize. That said, I suspect come end of season, I'm hoping the Hawks and Burning Core should be seriously competitive teams.
I mean, that actually brings me on to that point I mentioned towards our power rankings when we did our podcast for this week, where we actually discuss our power rankings for each of these teams. Burning Core and the Hawks were two teams that we really struggled and mulled over heavily on their actual positioning. I remember my positioning for Burning Core being wild. I'm like, they could go 4 places up in my table. They could also just drop and be 6th place, 7th place, and I'll accept that.
Yeah.
Why do we think there's such a versatility and a range between these two teams, lads?
Everyone plays very aggressively if they're the carriers. Once in Rayfarki, we thought they might be the second best in role in jungle and top
They
side.
were very good in summer.
Coming into like the end of summer, and then you come into against DFM, and they were actually not the players which made that game close. It was Proud. And it was Yuhi and Yujo. It was not the two people that we'd seen carry that team time and time again. Why are they so all over the place? For me, it is about the consistency of Yuhi and that bot side as an AD carry. We had a lot of questions as to why Burning Core chose to keep this AD carry. A lot of questions about that. Did have some really good Ashe performances against DFM in that series. Again, we are going to keep referencing that because that's the last time we saw them. And bluntly, it's the best they looked in that summer as well. We do have a lot of carry AD carries now. Like, you can't just go towards the utility. Every AD carry needs to be pulling their weight, and Yuhi did that on Aphelios, and that's one of the things we said in spring, ban Aphelios and Burning Core fall apart, but apart from that, not really too many options. So that's, for me, why they're all over the place. I can't really get a judge of them before we know how Yuhi's doing.
That's fair. Initialize, go on for it.
I think there is also so much to be said. I kind of agree with that as well. There is still this weakness, we'll call it, of Yuhi in the bot lane, who people have been questioning. It's like, why, does this guy really want to be on this roster still? And he's got a lot to prove. That said, they have brought in Gariado, who is also bringing in a lot more competitive spark in the mid lane. This guy is something of a veteran now, and he's also a pretty high-end Japanese talent as well for that mid lane, which is great news for Burning Core. And that kind of stabilizes the ship a little bit, which was very much in stormy waters for Burning Core. So I'm hoping actually to see a little bit more consistency and potentially a slightly higher level this year as well, even if Yuhi could still be a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very fair point. Yuhi has been that volatile kind of place in the bot lane, as you've both mentioned. It's going to be very important. I actually agree with both of you on this. I think Burning Core and the Hawks have this kind of crazy thing. I think I've given it slightly an edge to Burning Core with the ceiling. I think the glass ceiling is far higher for Burning Core before
Sure.
they can break through it. But gentlemen, we're over to pick and ban phase, so take it away.
Ah, I have been waiting to hear you say those words for a few months now, Lexi. Thank you so much as always for hosting, but that does leave myself and Nymera to cast our first game of the LJL in 2021, and my man, it is good to be back.
It is. I'm seeing the same colors. I'm seeing the same layout. It's the LJL pick and ban,
Oh,
and immediately we're
beautiful.
getting rid of some. Well, oh yeah, this is the thing. Actually, I was about to say, oh, the Lucian. I wonder if that's going to be towards the bottom. No, actually, the Hawks, even through in spring 2020, had Lucian banned away from them pretty much every game. Lucian was taken away from Dasher, was taken away from several other players on their roster, but effectively they were just saying, look, don't give them that. And now Lucian, in a very strong point of power, is denied from the Hawks.
Absolutely important to call out, but let's take a quick step back and run down these rosters so people are aware of what's going on, because that feels like a professional thing to do. Burning Core, of course, are on the blue side this time out, and they will have Ray Farkey in the top lane, once in the jungle, Gariaru, new person in the mid lane, and of course Yuhi and Proud returning in the bot lane.
On the other side, it's the Hawks who've shaken things up. It's Afamen brought in from Sengoku in the top lane, Tussle, Dasher, Zenit, and Corporal filling out that roster.
Absolutely is, and that means we've finally got the last of our bans, and Rel, interestingly, is that last ban for Burning Core, who has been becoming a kind of dark horse, no pun intended, for a seriously hard engaged support.
I think why Burning Core banned that on blue side is that if you leave it through to red, at that point you'd get Samiro Rel, and that is a duo lane which does a lot of damage within split skirmishes and has the chance to carry most of your late game fights. There've been, in fact, there's some really good Academy NA games where we saw what Rel can do with the multi-man engage, with that ultimate coming into the stun too. Instead, because that Rel's taken off the table, the Samira's passed up by the Hawks. They lock in the Kai'Sa and the Alistair for Corporal.
Absolutely, and of course that meant first pick was Straight for Once, who was such a key component of Burning Core's early and mid games last year. Very, very strong. He's picked up one of the top tier junglers at the minute. Gore Drinker on Olaf is just ridiculous, and Ray Farkey will be going towards the Gnar, which has been kind of a thing in the LJL in the past. Of course, Gnar right now, something of a controversial pick in pro play.
I was about to say, I'm actually not sure if I've seen Ray Farkey's Gnar before. He's not the most tenured of players, even though he came in and really shook up the top lane champion pool. Ray Farkey has normally been going towards Jace and things like that. So I have to see what Afamen chooses to pick up on that side, because he tends to be the person I peg to play that Gnar pick.
Well, that Olaf will be going up against another one of those perennial favorites in the jungle for the last few metas or patches at least, namely Lilia back in the game. And Yuhi, as we said, going towards something like the Xayah, which I know you actually think is relatively strong in the current meta.
Very strong. And also is one of the champions that can self-peel from an Alistair, because if you see that ball heading towards you, you press ult, and that's very nice. You go for the Gale Force almost exclusively. Having a few Kraken Slayer builds, I just really like Gale Force on Xayah, because you already have a very strong window of power when you pop your W, and you have that that extra attack speed, extra literal percent auto attack damage increase that you don't. All you need is a chance to enable that. If you get your first auto attack down while your W is running, you get the extra move speed. Gale Force gives you move speed too, so if you dash in, get the first auto, you are running people down. Stopping people from running them down, though, is going to be this disengage pick of the Orianna for Gariaru in the mid lane.
Got a little note here from production. He's managed to get us some stats, and Ray Farkey has
good on
a
you, Lexi.
fairly shocking win rate on the Gnar, namely 0%. He's only played it twice, so not a huge sample size, but either way, it hasn't been the best look for him. Played it once in 2019, played it once in 2018, and it didn't look fabulous. So we've got to keep our eyes on how that goes. Gragas was the last lock in there as well, who's definitely been rising in priority. For once, not in the jungle, but actually either in that support or top lane role. Now leaving Hawks up for the last pick, and they're hovering that Victor, which will be locked in. And I know with the way he's had his slight mini rework, has definitely been kind of edging towards pro level play for a while now.
And the thing from Burning Core, what they've done with that Gragas when they logged in, kind of puts the microscope, puts the spotlight rather, onto what happens if Hawks end up with Renekton or Alistair far too deep in. You're going to get Shockwave, you're going to get Nard, you're going to have Feathers going through you, and you've got a Barrel and the Belly Bot from Gragas to really hold you to account. So this is, for me, now a test right out the gates from the Hawks, as it always was going to be. It's the first game of the split, of particularly Apperman and Corporal to show that they can go in at the right time and do that with the rest of the team, so when the disengage comes out from Burning Core, they still stick the landing.
Absolutely, and you can see the playmaking effort Burning Core. Right? Proud is on an engaged champion, which he's so damn good at. In fact, I get the impression that maybe we've seen him on Gragas sometime in the past, but I'm not sure about that one. Maybe I'm just fantasizing there. But you can see where they're supposed to be, all those little playmaking tools. Can Ray Farkey manage an about all that?
Production!
Kind of
Proud Gragas, go!
On the other side, I mean, it's not like the Hawks are shy of options themselves. They've got Corporal and that Alistair, as we mentioned. Renekton, currently relatively high priority as well. And you sort of see the back-to-front team fight they got with
Guess who's been an idiot, not set up the scene for two people talking while this is happening. That's okay, that's fine. We're going to look at the LJL casters instead.
Yes,
and,
they're nice people. They're worth seeing. Just listen to us instead. That's fine.
That's the one. Cool. It's first day broadcast, guys. It is what happens when we try and remember and oil all of those mechanisms that we used to have in that last year, as these teams do the same on the Rift.
Absolutely. Obviously, big up to Nymera for stepping up the plate and doing some things with that production side of things and hitting all our scenes and all the rest of it. So good job, buddy. Knew you could do it. And we've got a note from Maswan who's basically said he's never played it with an appropriate and very professional Keck W to end that up.
I think honestly, yeah. I know I said like in pregame, oh, Ray Farkey, Afman, that's gonna be a really fun matchup. And Renekton versus Nara that's definitely a matchup which can take over the game, because if Nara gets ganked early, and also Renekton, Lily, a very well known combo, Nara can struggle to survive in that top lane. Whereas, actually, maybe we should be focusing on these supports, because last time we saw them, they were maybe our third and fourth best supports within the region, and actually the top of the pack towards that support pool is very, very talented. We have probably Gang and Reiner as our top two. That's what we'd normally agree on broadcast. And then Proud and Corporal are vying for that third spot. So for me, that can also be a really important role this game, because they're on such large playmakers for their teams. They are going to have a lot of tools to decide how these team fights go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, anybody who was, say, watching the G2 game last night was watching Wonder do stupid things on Gragas top. We've seen Licorice do as well over in the LCK, over in the LPL. Also down in that support role. Just the amount of sheer CC you bring innately, no matter how many levels, how much gold you have, always makes Gragas something of a threat. So I guess I want to ask you, like, where are you at with Gragas support in the current meta? Obviously, you see him a little bit more towards the top side, but Burning Core flexed him towards the bottom. Are you happy with that pick there?
Particularly because there's a lot of low-range champions on the side of the Hawks this game. I think Gragas support's fine. That Barrel's going to do a lot of work at that. You can either punt the Victor out of a fight, the Lilia out of a fight, and also the same with the Alistair and the Renekton. Or if someone, like I said, is disconnected from their team, you force them further in, and when you have Olaf, who's really good when someone's up in their face, and the Zyre trying to get the feathers through, you can help position them accordingly to protect your carries, and of course, like I said, split up that team fight, as Gragas has always done, regardless of the role throughout their pro career.
Absolutely, and it's kind of interesting because obviously we've got ourselves two mid lane control mages, got two team fight AD carries, some slightly more aggressive topsiders, and I'm just cannot wait for these sort of mid game 10 to 15 minute dragon fights where some of these triggers start getting pulled.
For sure. And once again, you get to look at not our wonderful faces. Although, of course, the official stream, wonderfully suited and booted, as Maswan did say in the chat. Yes, maybe we'll bring out the tuxes for one day if we actually get out that.
Tux.
I do
in the wardrobe to my right, actually.
This is actually a distinct possibility. We can go black tie for this if we had that option. It's just a lot of effort for a regular split, even if it is first games of the split.
Well, I think I look fairly dapper. I'm just not suited and booted. I've gone with the smart, casual, cool guy look. That's clearly what I am. And I'll hear no arguments against that.
We talked about the remote broadcasting thing, and my cursor's on the screen. We'll move that quickly. In terms of like we get to do we don't get to dress up and stuff like that, but we do get to wear joggers. We do get to be really comfy while we are casting from the comfort of our own homes.
Sorry.
Well, Shame on you then. We're into Rift, onto the Rift. Take us away, Sam. Take us away. Take me from this place.
With that glorious transition, yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are onto the Rift for the first game of the LJL 2021 here, cast by the LJL officially unofficial. It is my pleasure to be back and casting. We've got Burning Core versus the Hawks. And you can sort of see right now, roughly a 5-man stack, though, with a little bit more presence towards their blue side jungle for the Hawks. Dasher just hanging around that river entrance, maybe waiting to see whether there'll be a late invade, but doesn't look like Burning Core are up for doing that.
No, not this time. See the runes on screen? The one thing which I'm kind of interested in is the secondary runes to the AD carries going back towards inspiration. For the longest time, we've had Nimbus Cloak in these AD carries repertoires. You flash away, you heal, you get that extra safety in a gang. I guess because Lilia and Olaf tend to go towards top side. Maybe that's not the worry for them. It gives them the extra 10 move speed when you have the free ass boots coming through at about 12 minutes into that game, unless you have that kill participation, and the extra sustain in laning phase when you have the biscuits coming through. But not having that, fighting the bot lane, but not having that Nimbus Cloak can change the way you play these AD carries pretty fundamentally.
Yeah, definitely true. And I mean, I suppose the other thing that's changing things fundamentally is both of these carries, I feel, are Gale Force carries as well. So that's just innate movement and another dash, right? Which these carries didn't have necessarily as much before. So yes, you've lost Nimbus Cloak, but you kind of gained another kind of dash outside of a flash, right?
In some ways, yeah, you have. It depends whether, of course, they're going to stop off towards something like the Kraken Slayer instead. That's kind of, definitely an option. Kraken Slayer for Kaiser, I can definitely see it this game because you have to try and cut through that Olaf in some ways. But then in the same way, you can kind of say, well, what about actually having that extra dash to get away from the Olaf if you're not actually on the aggressive front foot.
And as you can see on screen, I don't know how many people out there are good with their katakana and kanji and all the rest of it, but basically the official broadcast having a bit of a conversation about Victor's changes, namely Glorious Evolution, his passive, has seen a little bit of a revamp in the preseason. So I'll throw that one over to you, Nightmare, as someone who has put a fair amount of time into Victor over the years.
Oh, as someone who used to be in one of those university teams playing in amateur competition, yes, I was put on Victor duty many a time. The thing about Victor is that he used to have a very specific early game where he needs to get to 1,250 gold or whatever it was on various patches for the gold for that first hex core upgrade. Now you just have to get CS and you have to get yourself kill participation, because if you kill a minion, it gives you 1 stack on your passive. If you get a kill participation, it's 5, and when you get to 100, you get your first upgrade. So what that means is if you flub a mid lane gank and give 2 kills to a Victor, you have completely done yourself in, my friend. Do not do that, particularly because Dasher is a very good pilot of the champion too, or at least he has been across so many different champions. And in this control mage matchup, when so many people trying to dive in, like the Gragas and the Gnar from the other side, this Victor can have a lot of good team fights coming his way.
Absolutely, and that's basically the deal, right? If Victor gets kills early and doesn't have the upgraded death ray, I was expecting the second explosion, but you can see if that kind of kill goes over, it gets a little bit dicey. He gets those early upgrades and things become even scarier, even quicker.
I don't think that's an issue, because you have the corrupting part on the Orianna. You've taken that hard trade to make sure you can recall on that cannon wave, refill those corrupting pot charges. Had a spare biscuit anyway, could have popped that. Chose not to, comes back, has full sustain, and now has a tier to boot.
And thank you, Nightmare, for sort of giving a little bit of a stabilizing calm there. I saw the death laser, I saw the low health bar. I was thinking, is the explosion there? Of course, it's
me play-by-play. You see low health bar.
Yeah, my lizard brain gets in trouble as Proud goes in for a little of a belly bump. Nice. Gets a decent route courtesy of Yuki onto Corporal, but trade back all right from Hawks as well. And thus far, it's been a relatively stable early game, with the exception of Renekton getting something of an early lead as far as we can tell up on the top side, depending on how much of the wave Rayfaki picks up.
If you do get that initial positioning on the wave and doesn't get that boomerang to slow you and threaten extra autos as you head up for CS, then yes, Renekton can be very strong within that wave. Start getting more rage, because the more auto attacks you get on the wave, the more empowered abilities you get, and when you get more empowered abilities, Renekton starts to thrive. So if you get a lot of those in the very first couple of levels, yes, you can get yourself up to an earlier advantage, but as you can see, going against Mega Gnar turns the tables just a little bit.
And that's partly why we've been seeing more Gnar recently, is that Gnar has received a number of buffs specifically to Mega Gnar, a lot more damage in that kit. Just Mini Gnar has not been touched, so
Speaking of empowered
there is always that
abilities,
weakness.
might be looking for a flash empowered W here.
All right, keep your eyes out for that flash, Ruthless Predator. Lilia, though, is backing, so Rayfaki wisely just keeping his distance for now, but Appleman has hit level 6, so Dominus also available. Rayfaki is away from Mega, but looks like Lilia will just back away, and we won't see that gank as potential as it was.
In other news, other level 6s hit across the other solo lane, which means that the Chaos Storm is used to poke Galliardo out, which gives a bit of time, a bit of pressure, I guess, for Victor, but that pressure leads to nothing, because Olaf was already on the dragon and takes the first mountain dragon of this game.
Yep. Gone and dusted, taken by this Olaf, who is notoriously good at taking dragons early. There's the shockwave out from Guerrero in response, but Dasher definitely got a little bit of the health bar advantage to work with right now, even if he is fighting in the wave, but might force a recall out of Guerrero in the bot side. The Corporal going in on the retort, but that's going to be possibly too late because Yuhi gets first blood. Little bit too over-aggressive. Now Want is here as well. Zenit gets hit by the Undertow despite the flash, but look, Tussle is here maybe to turn this around. There is level 6, so maybe the Lilting Lullaby could come out, but it isn't going to be procced. And Burning Core pick up first blood in the 2v2.
2v2, because really, as about to say, we know that both these supports can be very strong playmakers. Corporal gets caught out, and that's largely because I think they thought Tussle was going to be closer. As it stands, actually it's the Olaf which turns up first, gets that first kill in the bot lane, or at least shows his presence, doesn't actually get the kill participation. That goes over to Yuhi instead. We had the questions about them, but starting off strong.
Even in CS gets first blood. That's a fairly good way to silence the haters, frankly. And, we've had our questions, but that is a great way to make a statement and suggest otherwise. We're going to go into a replay and let's see how it all worked out.
So, as you can see, the feathers start getting put down. Oh, Corporal starts... Oh, did he try and go for a flash? Maybe he's trying to go for the flash combo. Either way, without that summoner, doesn't land that combo either way, and a bit of a summoner wasted. So then Proud comes back, uses that vision in the brush, and the Corporal's forced to go in, but of course, just beforehand, had used that Aftershock. None of those extra tanky stats, none of that extra HP. Once hits the Undertow on the retreating Kai'Sa, almost threatening a second kill there.
Absolutely does, and I think we're back to live now. That's definitely going to give that a slight advantage over in that bot side. So with the minute with the itemization, Dirk's in for Kai'Sa, so she's not too unhappy with where the game's at, and at least didn't die even if both of her summoners went down.
For sure. And now you have to play around this Kai'Sa who's going to get continually shoved in. At least you don't have yourself a dragon spawning. I actually wonder if the Hawks maybe should have gone for a bit of a lane swap there, because you've got the Herald coming up, your Renekton is doing fine in the top side, and you can maybe use that top lane rotation to maybe force something onto the Herald, go top, but then you kind of the problem with that is that you need to figure out where you're going to put the Renekton on the map, but it would still be better to try and gain something for this bot lane, and maybe pick up that neutral objective for yourselves.
Wow, okay, that's not happened, and that's the way things are for now, unfortunately for them. Gold lead slightly over to Burning Core as a result of plays in the bot side primarily, but you can sort of see the solo lanes, at least for the Hawks, still looking pretty strong as they stand.
Does seem like way right now. Sorry, I just turned on a bit of that music a little bit louder than I thought I was. I was going to put in some pads, and as it turns out, it's much louder than I thought. And much louder, and we will not talk of this again. What we will talk about is one's taking Skull. That's much more interesting, right?
Thanks again, obviously, over to Nightmare, who's taking on the role of...
I was like, ooh, wouldn't it be nice if we had some background stuff so people forget that we don't have game audio?
Like
well, shame on
now
me
they
for
know.
trying, I guess.
Because of the blaring noise.
Absolutely.
Look, you just like the pounding bass beats. It's all right. We all know you're a club fiend in real life, Alex. That's who you are as a just
absolutely,
a
yes.
matter of course. That is you.
I'm all about that industrial metal and raving in strange locations such as like abandoned underpasses.
That's
I too wish to be an extra on the Matrix 4. That's really my goal in life right now. That's what I'm working towards.
There's a leather duster in your cupboard somewhere.
I was just there's like a feather duster. Oh, right, the other thing. Like what? Okay. I too like to keep my house clean. You know, it's all I have to do. Like I'm locked up in my apartment right now. I'm just like, yes, okay, sure. I've got to do all of that spring cleaning. It's coming up to that time of year.
Brilliant. The Matrix 4 Neo starts a cleaning service.
Yes, that's the one.
That's it.
And looks like Tussel's starting up the cleaning service on these Raptors because Lilia has done this the entirety of their pro tenure, and they've just taken that away. But going into the
Flash
gank
in.
mid.
All right, that is massively aggressive. Does get the shockwave, though. Does that Gary Arrow on the Orianna? It's still not going to be enough. The Chaos Storm comes through, and a well-played gank from the returning members of the Hawks.
I really like how Tussle played that. Sees that, okay, sure, yeah, I can take these Raptors, but there is an opportunity in mid lane. Gadiaru oversteps their safe bounds, taken down accordingly, and that's a kill over to the Victor. That's an extra 50, extra 50 stack, 25 stacks, I believe it is, towards that next passive upgrade.
Victor's off vision as well, so Gary Arrow thinks he's safe to shove up, and then comes Tussle.
And again, you can see the health bar of Gadiaru. What he's trying to do is just shove the wave and go and get a reset. Doesn't quite get the right timing though, and as we said, is punished, goes down for their first death, and that's very unfortunate because now you're without that ultimate for this next dragon fight.
Yeah, but Burning Core are going to go for a bit of an invader here onto the Gromp. Once is stepping forward. They know the Lilting Line of Spy is not up, but Corporal goes in regardless. Gets the headbutt pole, brings once down to about half HP with that nasty Dream Dust passive. Olaf got himself a healing pot that will try and make his way back to more healthier states, but Dasher now roaming down. Garrio's a little behind. Watch out for those teleports, but of course they're not available, so I should have glanced at the scoreboard before mentioning that.
I was going to say,
the second Drake's up. Maybe things are going to happen here.
My first thing, my eyes were drawn to the top lane, of course, and there are no teleports. There's no Mega Gnar either. It's just going to be this straight 4v4, lacking some of that front line, so it will be about the initial burst on these squishier members of both these rosters.
Death Rays and Bowling Balls are coming out, and Burning Core don't have the easiest responses with their team comp. Maybe an Orianna ball at the right time could do something, but both teams decide in the end to back away, don't want to just sit there in the river and stare daggers at each other, and they'll move away for now.
No, instead that's going to be, is it going to be 2 or 3 plates? Looks like it is actually going to be 3 plates going over to the side of Burning Core. I didn't actually see who that gold went over to. I'm not sure if that bot lane was close enough to get that, so it might have actually all gone to once. So it's going to be Olaf with more resources from that bit of play.
Well, we'll see how that one worked out, but either way, it's at least some gold over to Burning Core, who are keeping about 1,000 gold here at the 12-minute mark. As you hear Zenit trade back and forth a little bit. Maybe this time Burning Core will just move straight back over this dragon and try this one up one more time, especially as the bot lane of the Hawks are currently recalling, and Tussle, while he's around, best of space to come and fight this one off.
You know, you're talking about top laners. Oh, should have said it's check the teleports, check again. They're actually both up now. Rayfarki can maybe start stacking that Rage Gene passive on the Gnar because Tussle is having a look, Dasher is having a look, but Alistair and Kai'Sa a bit far out. I think this is going to be gone before they fight.
I think it is. There will be the smite once secures it, but Burning Core are now trapped in the pit with the teleports coming. Might see a lot of flashes out here because that is all the members of the Hawks are going to get to me. Yuhi throws out the Featherstorm but doesn't get over the wall, but they will get out. It's a flash from once. It's a flash for Yuzi, but they do pick up the second Drake.
Featherstorm no longer allows you to carry yourself over walls. Tussle steals away the roadbuff. Says, okay, fine, sure, get the 2 early dragons. I'm going to take this as an extra insult to injury. And with that, now having no ult, no flash, and Xayah, I really don't think Burning Core want to fight for the next couple of minutes. Let's see if Hawks can use that window of opportunity.
And they've certainly got the chance to do something with it. Whether they will, of course, is another question. But Burning Core have got themselves stacking on the Drake front. It's an Infernal Rift, so if they can get their way to an Infernal Soul with Olaf, with Gnar, with Orianna, hell, Gragas in the support role even, that's a fair amount of high damage. Aquaman flashing in on the top side. Rayfarki is in a spot of bother, but I've got a little bit of a frozen screen, so I have no idea how this has gone right now. It turns out that Dasher has killed the Gnar.
Dasher comes up, lands the Death Ray, doesn't even have to use a flash. Rayfarki goes down. I had just popped out of that Mega Gnar. I had no way to get back to that extra HP. Those extra combat stats wonderfully capitalized from the 2 solo laners of the Hawks, coming in relatively strong.
And that is a second kill over to the Victor, and you mentioned that as a dangerous thing to do early on. It's 15 minutes in, and that feels like a lot of Victor's upgrades will now have been picked up.
Zenit
nice
getting
and early on for this game.
a little bit collapsed on here, though.
Oh, he is, but look who's coming through the jungle. Namely, it's Lilia and Proud, and now Want is in a lot of trouble himself. And the Cathian Rain will bring down the Viking. Rayfarki has teleported back, but he's now in danger again. Will not be able to look for anything more. Corporal now hunting through the jungle. Dasher coming around as well, and Rayfarki needs to get his way out of here. Does he have the hop? I don't know whether it's up right now because the Chaos Storm got popped, took a lot of damage. and will be forced away, but that will mean Zenit gets free time on this top tower, and it's sure to fall.
Really like what the Hawks just did in that last couple of minutes. So they do go for that really aggressive play from the solo laners onto Rayfaki, pick up that kill. But if that hadn't worked out, Kai'Sa was coming close just after that point. They were definitely rotating up to that side of the map. And because they stay, it means that when Rayfaki teleports up again, doesn't find anything for it, once already goes down. A good allocation of resources by the Hawks to secure that top lane, get that tower, and get themselves back into more gold parity.
All right, well, we've got a little bit of downtime. Let's cover some of those items. Nah, I believe, has gone for, is that the Stride Breaker I'm looking
Yes,
at right
it
there?
is.
It is. Gore Drinker in for Olaf. Of course, nothing else will do for him. Gale Force complete for Yuhi. On the other side, no complete item yet for Apperman, but he's still in lane. Maybe on this return, he should have it, looking at where he's at with components. But the one I really want to draw your eyes to is the fact that Tussle on this Lily has actually gone for first item Zhonya's. Which is not necessarily what you expect from a Lilia.
No, but you do have that 2-kill Victor, so that's an extra 50 stacks onto the passive, so effectively extra free half an upgrade alongside the 167. Yes, and that's a good shockwave. Okay, alright, so just a bit of a love tap in the mid lane. Gadiadu trying to get one back after Dasher had dunked on that Orianna alongside Tussle once or twice this game already. Herald's up, that looks like the next port of call, but now you have no shockwave. Burning Core, do you want to commit to this?
Apperman's over on the side and got a fairly decently stacked Rage passive himself from the Renekton. And doesn't look like this Herald fight is going to break out quite yet. Instead, it's going to be mid lane priority and a bit of a J-Ram going on for now.
Important things to note, Gadiadu is not putting out the most magic damage right now, hasn't got that first completed item, which means that the Tabby plus Zhonya's from Tussle is going to be doing a lot of work if he gets in close and has to tank up a lot of damage. I'm looking for a flash Q into ult Zhonya's combo. That's the engage from Hawks if they can't find anything, even from that Renekton and the Alistar.
Corporal got spotted out a little bit on the flank there, so now going to have to try and find his way past Proud if he wants to get in. Instead, they're going to engage onto him, and Olaf steals the Rift Herald. All while Corporal goes in, taxiing onto the back end, and that Rubinar going down. Massive damage onto the back line. Yuhi's trying his best, throwing out as many feathers as he possibly can. Tussle over the wall, looking for a bowling ball, can't quite land it. Renekton is a massive, massive crocodile. Those feathers do nothing, and Yuhi surely will fall here as the slice and dice brings down the bird.
And the Renekton leaves Xayah in pieces, sliced, diced, and ready to serve. Goes down for the first death of the game. 1-7 in the kills now. Herald goes over to Burning Core, but at what cost? It's at 4 members of their team.
And, Renekton didn't pick up any of those kills because you know who did? Dasher. 5-0-1 now after the end of that play.
It's absolutely huge. That's going to be all 3 upgrades done. 5 kills, 5 times 25. That's going to be, 125 stacks in itself. That's 1 free upgrade. Had about 200 CS. That's almost got you to your full 3 upgrades. Going back into the replay, though, more importantly, you can see what happens with Gragas trying to split the fight. But the damage is already done. Tussle managed to get a really good, again, ult Zhonya's combo. And Yuhi can't get enough feathers in the right angles to really lock up the whole team. They just end up taking too much damage in the early portion of that fight.
Yeah, and that's the way it is. It also means that Hawks get to come over to this Infernal Drake without Burning Core able to contest. That is the punishment. They also have got themselves a gold lead of about 1,500, looking pretty good. And Gariaru probably needs to be a little bit wary here. Corporal's coming around the back, and this Orianna needs to back away. Will get taxied onto by Corporal, but I don't think there's any threat of the kill right now. Infernal Drake goes over to Lilia. Hawks have the gold lead, and they have something of an advantage right now.
It's definitely one way to put it. Rayfaki at least using their push in the top side to get themselves their second turret of the game, get themselves up to that advantage. Apperman backs off very wisely. And that's because that Gragas was looking up in that top side. And I know that this Gragas in that last fight didn't achieve the result that Burning Core really wanted. But I think the real problem there was that Gadiadu had no shockwave either. They were heading into that fight without one of these big teamfight ultimates. And again, you didn't have your mythic already. A lot of things to question there. But Burning Core, we asked, hey, you sure you want to commit to this? The answer is a resounding no. And now they have to sit and watch the map fall away from them.
Absolutely. Yuhi and the rest of Burning Core are in mid lane though, and they do have the Herald. Looking to try and get something back here after that kind of disastrous last fight. No shockwave, no chance, all of that kind of jazz. We'll only manage to get about half the remaining HPs of that tower down, so down about a quarter overall. And, yeah, that's just going to be it. Nothing more to be found. still that 2,000-ish gold lead for the Hawks, and map state gonna stabilize a little bit until that next dragon comes up, you expect.
I have a lot of worries for Burning Core now. Even though it's only a 2,000 gold lead, your only point of pressure is going to be this Gnar trying to push into the Renekton. But if you go for really hard trades, you're going to lose something else somewhere else on the map.
Okay, does have Gale Force managed to get his way. Not the best angle on the Featherstorm, but at least escapes does the Xayah, which is good news, but they're going to lose mid lane tower regardless.
Gyarados maybe could have looked for a Shockwave instead. It's Corporal looking for a combo onto once, not going to lead to anything. What I was going to say, though, is that you've got too much follow-up from the Kai'Sa, who is kind of free to roam across the map, because you can use Afferman, you can use Rayfaki, rather, to try and pin someone in one area of the map with this Gnar who's doing pretty well, but that means that this Kai'Sa is free to go wherever she wants and ult into the fight, has the second tier ultimate, and because they have so much free roam on the map, they're going to start up this Baron.
It's going down about half HP. There goes the far side alteration, and once will be around. Teleport in with Mega Gnar for Rayfaki. How much of that body do you have left? About half of it. So they're definitely well where this comes in. He's got flash, so this could be huge. He needs to find his way in. Hops his way over the wall. Has not used Mega Gnar yet and is in a bit of trouble. Gets to go away, and Apperman gets Yuhi in the back end. It's a 1-for-1 right now. Renekton for Kyrie. Corporal goes down to a boomerang, and that's looking good for the Burning Core right now as they get 2-for-1. Hawks overstep a little bit about that Baron and don't get what they wanted.
Proud really tries to get something out of that play with that cast. Does deliver the Renekton too close to Yuhi, it turns out, because that flash comes through from Afferman. You have that Gold Drink, you have that Cold and Meek. Gets too much HP back, and Yuhi didn't actually have the heal up. It was a few seconds off cooldown. So they lose their AD carry, removing their threat of returning that Baron. But you're right, it is Hawks going a bit too aggressive. They probably could have held the map state as they had it for a number of minutes, get themselves those individual advantages, maybe look for a dive onto that Gnar with that Kai'Sa roaming across the map. As it stands, though, they lose a couple of members and they don't get that Baron. Now they have to reset that map again.
I probably have to call out that actually, maybe if they just pulled off, they had the damage, but they didn't need to stick around. The teleport comes through in the back end and it all starts going wrong.
Burning Core come in with a Mega Gnar. That's already dangerous in itself. He did use his hop, but he gets right into the thick of things, and he split up the fight. Proud also splits up his fight from the side of Burning Core, but as we said, because that ult had just been forced from Xayah, because you didn't have that extra peel ability, Yuhi goes down, and it ends up being only that 2-for-1. But from the side of Burning Core, it's a much bigger win than that because it stops, as we said, this kind of chokehold and this very dangerous nebulous state in the map for Burning Core, from the side of the Hawks, rather, to come to fruition.
And that's exactly it. Also, credit to Gary Adu as well. Kind of over a wall and gets to Shockwave Corporal in with a little bit of assistance from Rayfaki to bring down the extra member of Corporal and really give them that advantage at the end of that fight. And that means this game is neck and neck again. It's about 500 gold that separates them. 3 towers to 3, 2 drakes to 1. This game could go any way, it feels like right now.
It could do. He's getting a really big trade on to Zenit.
Whoa!
Okay, okay, so we've got the pause coming through. Zenit didn't flash, didn't heal, didn't ult. There's a chance here that maybe something went wrong from the side of the Hawks players. So strap yourselves in. We're going to have ourselves a bit of a long one, I think.
Yeah, that one feels like we might be getting a bit of game pause. Of course, the way things are currently, remember, guys, that we are still playing remotely, as are most leagues right now. Hell, I think all of them are, even the LCK and stuff, which of course had LOL Park and the rate things are there, which means that maybe some of these internet issues are going to be a little bit more common than we would normally see on LAN.
It's definitely something that we need to talk about. You know what I do need to do? I really need to try and set up one of those good old 2-person speaky thingies. You know what?
You go do that, and I'll get chatting, and we'll be fine because we have got ourselves this.
Lovely,
game
cool.
We've got ourselves a game state where things are pretty damn even, and I'm quite excited to see it. Some good plays from both these squads, some slightly dubious play from both of these squads as well.
That's one way to put it.
Kind of early season issues, I think.
That's definitely yeah. Go on.
For all the, we were saying, it's going to be Rayfaki once, Proud being the really big superstars of Burning Core early on, so much, a lot of tenure and respect thrown those players' way. Actually, honestly, he's been pretty damn good this game so far. 1 or 2 missteps, don't get me wrong, but there's been some good plays as well, which wasn't always true last year.
So we're actually on screen. But as you can tell, actually,
Fabulous.
Sam is not 2 people. He's not initialized in Nightmare, and I'm actually not Mass Swan, but you do get to see our lovely faces on screen. I'll just keep having the VOD on in the background, because it seems right now, yeah, it is still just the casters talking. So, as we said, it was odd that was just that straight 80 carry 1v1 with no summoners being blown. From what Lexi's saying from watching the official stream, seems like it was a computer freeze. It means that we might be going into a chrono break. Now, for those of you who've watched all these Pro League things before, you know that chrono breaks take some time.
Wow.
So strap yourselves in, get ready to look at our beautiful faces with the wrong names beneath us, because I was an idiot and didn't think that maybe there was a point where we might need to have two on
Who
the
am I
screen.
currently? Have I been renamed forcibly? What's my name? Right?
You are actually two people, Sam. You
I'm
yourself.
two
You are
people. I
actually
see.
yourself and me. You are initialized and Nymera.
I
Whereas
did that. That's probably a good thing, just saving the Hapgood family name.
yeah, so I mean, I guess we can talk a little bit more about the game, because of course this is our first broadcast of the year, first look at our LJL teams. Of course, there were 4 games earlier in the day on the official stream. We'll be covering them tomorrow for those who are interested in that, because of course we're in the UK. Time zones don't make it easy for us covering all of the LJL live,
4
but we
AM 's
do
a
do
bit
our
rough.
best. We do make sure that we do cover everything that we can in the way that we can cover it. Have another 3 games after this one today, so if we have more computer crashes, we could be here until sundown.
We could be. I'm hoping not. We'll find out how this is all going and what the end result is. It might just be that things stay as they are, but that kind of hardware issue tends to lead to something like a chrono break, as Nymera was suggesting. So, in case we might be seeing a little bit of a pause here while things get reset, at least back a couple minutes.
For sure. Okay, so let's have a think of a couple of these different matchups. So top lane, I think actually Afman's done really well in that top lane. We know that Rayfarky is a really good solo player. His laning phase is up there with Ebby's. In fact, Ebby and Rayfarky tend to be the 2 top laners with, like, these are the 2 which tend to give you the pressure point. What that means is that, yeah, what that meant is that we expected that to be one of these swingy matchups. Renekton can be that, but it has been, in very LJL fashion, more about how these top laners can individually affect the team fights rather than, and this is one of my things about the LJL, rarely do teams like splitting the map. They love to get down and dirty around these objectives, as the meta kind of allows you to do, but it's not like we're really seeing these teams play around there's play around strong split maps, because actually the Hawks, as you said before, that Baron had a very strong Victor who could wave clear anywhere on the map, the Renekton that can target stun, allowing the Kai'Sa to fly into a fight, and that allowed them to maybe go into a very dangerous point in the game for them.
And the Hawks kind of had something of a command over the game, and they went for the Baron, which, understandable. You can do a bit of a Baron check. If no one turns up, that Baron was probably yours when you had a Kai'Sa and a Victor shredding through it. Problem is, stuck on it a little bit long, didn't turn quick enough either, and get a little bit caught with their hand in the cookie jar, right? And as a result, we're back to a relatively even game state, I feel.
In some ways, at least it's going to stall out for another couple of minutes, because you've got a lot of resources used in that one fight, which means they're not available for the next couple. You still have a Victor scaling up into infinity. You still have a Kai'Sa doing that from the side of the Hawks. I think that Xayah can definitely kill off the front line, but reaching the back line through the front line for the Xayah is going to be... It's not going to be on the Xayah's shoulders, put it that way. You need to have a really good cask. You need to have something like that to ensure that you do have... access to that backline, because there's only so much one Gale Force can do.
Sure. And maybe a well-timed shockwave, maybe a well-placed cask. You've got some ways to get there, but it's not the easiest, right? It's a little bit dependent, I guess, on game state. Things like, how's your Narbar looking? Where's your flashes out? Can you get a decent angle out? It's not the easiest hard engage onto the backline, sure.
For sure. Do you mind just chatting very quickly, because I'm just going to put something on the screen to...
Absolutely can keep chatting. This is always the way things are right now, of course, but slight technical difficulties on our end too. Switching over who's running the stream, always an interesting experience, and that means I get to chat to you guys a little bit while Nymera puts on the producer's hat. He is got himself the metaphorical spanner while he sorts things out, and leaves me to chat with you guys. So good to see you, chat. Good to be back. Good to be here casting the LJL. Not so good to be stuck in a pause, but that gives me more chance to wax lyrical.
I'm good. All I had to do is just throw something on the screen which says we're actually in a pause. We're not here podcasting, although we do that every week. Gonna throw that one out. We have 2 episodes already.
Plug number 2.
We already talked about we had ourselves a power ranking episode, and yes, it's we thought that these 2 teams could maybe leapfrog each other. What we're seeing right now is that it is competitive right now. The Hawks seem to have come out a lot stronger from the gate. Really happy with how Dash has been playing. Dash and Gadeadu, definitely 2 of my 2 favorite mid laners from that last split in the last season in general. So good to see that Dash is getting off on a very stable front foot.
Yeah, and especially because at least in spring, right, Tussle and Dasher had a rough time of it. Well, the whole Hawks had a rough time of it. They had, I think, 4 wins combined, I think, by the time they were done in the end of spring, which was really disappointing, especially with who was on that roster, what we were expecting of them. So it's good to see that these guys, at least in this early game, at least this early in the season, looking pretty strong, right? Or at least competitive. And Tuss and Dasher, thus far, really good. The Victor, particularly, looking very scary. 5-0-1, that's a great place to be in
For
the
sure,
game,
yeah.
whatever champion you're on.
What that means is that Rayfaki has to play these team fights immaculately, because if you don't immediately lock up the Victor, you're giving up your life. What we saw around that Baron fight is that they managed to very quickly and appropriately time when the Magnar was coming in. They managed to get right into the fight, and then split the team fight. Like we said, Yuhi was lost for the cause, and that means that they don't get to turn around for a Baron themselves. That would have been a really cool turnaround for the side of Burning Core. But at least Rayfaki showing that he's at least managing to play around that resource bar, which is unique to Gnar in a way that so many top laners across the world have been failing to do. I guess there's, because we can sit here and wax lyrical about the game as much as we can, but I guess it would be nice to kind of take a step back and think a bit more meta about these teams, because the Hawks, they had a really, really crappy 2020, at least in the spring. So we were a year forward from that point. What we did see was we saw Summer be a lot better for the Hawks, but they had to recover. They put Dasher because Dasher role swapped to top lane, and they had Ramune in the mid lane. Dasher role swapped back to mid in the summer split, and they did at the end of the split end up having a good showing. It was decent, right? They ended up going out to CGA 3-1 in the playoffs in the first round, but that was when CGA were an absolute titan last split. You had the likes of Arya and Gango popping off left, right, and center. So for them to come in and retain at least some semblance of the strong early games which they had shown towards the end of that last split in summer, and have that stable backline carry core of Dasher, and then having, of course, their top laner doing pretty okay too. The Hawks giving me a lot of hope right now. And of course, they did lose Zandark, one of their coaches, I believe. I think he was on the Hawks, but they have kept Sweet. Sweet came in over from Korea too. They did have these Korean coaches. So it's nice to see that the Hawks have, because one of the things you do attribute to coaches a lot of the time is your early game, and is how you kind of how your poise is going into that early game and into the later mid game and team fights. It looks like the Hawks have at least got a good firm handle on that.
Yeah, and it was like just confirmation over from production as well. Like Sweet, I believe, is a new pickup actually this season. Wasn't around with them last year, or at least we'll double check that one. But yeah, Sweet, as some kind of context, is ex Jinnet, which probably certainly the most glowing resume there, but actually was also part of Flash Wolves, who definitely a lot more of a international threat, particularly for the longest time I known as the Korean killers and the like. So decent pedigree for this guy, and that's always good.
For sure. Yeah, no, so Sweet came in last summer. That's what ended up happening. And that was, I believe, that was alongside Xandar. It was just like, because it's kind of weird, because you end up having this thing, it's like, oh yes, Sweet has signed a contract. It's kind of weird because it's like they went on for a split and they just re-signed, so it kind of comes up a little bit awkward when you're viewing things on the webpage, particularly at this kind of point. Because I'm kind of sat here on the other tab like, yes, show me the LJL secret information, and it's not really telling me what I want to know all the time. Like when we're going to get back into game, we are still here, we're in the in-game pause. Maybe I should put some more, maybe I should like start just like, this is the point where we start considering Hangman with chat.
Considering Hangman with chat. I haven't even got chat up right now, actually, so I'm focused entirely on the game. So chat could be saying anything about me, I wouldn't know what on earth was going on.
Do you really know what's going on anyway, Sam?
No.
See, for me, it's the legend of the play-by-play. They must see the thing in front of them to understand what is happening. They say what is happening in front of you, and everything else, well, we'll work on that.
Oh boy. Yeah, so it looks like Sweet joined basically in July last year, which would be at the very least at the
midway through summer.
Was that midway through summer? So like had a couple weeks with the team, trying to bring them out. And honestly, the Hawks kind of had a bit of a turnaround. Looked okay, honestly, in summer. So good news for him.
I guess we can
looking over at Burning Core.
Yeah.
Gary Adu done all right thus far, but kind of got caught out the one time. Victor's definitely got the edge right now, but part of that's just through kills in team fights and the like. But actually, Rayfarkian once kind of been the recipient of a couple early deaths actually in this game.
For sure. I think particularly I've been really pleased with how Tussle and Dash are on. Victor Lilla is not a kill combo mid, not by any
Mm.
means. But if you see an incorrect position in lane, you can always capitalize regardless of these champions, right? If we've seen it with much heavier ganking mid lane. Champions that gank mid in a much better way, but we don't have too
Mm.
many in the meta right now. We don't really have a lot of Rek'Sai, a lot of Jarv, and Lee Sin. Those are the kind of things I'm thinking about when you're talking about good mid lane ganking champions. Lily is not one of those. So for them to force Gadearu to flash, shoot ult earlier into the game, and then get that kill after Tussle was looking for that Raptor invade, it shows how quickly they are capitalizing on Gadearu's missteps in that laning phase.
And part of that is just once Lilia hits level 6, Lilting Lullaby is just such damn hard CC. Catch people across the map, global range on that. If you've got Dream Dust on you, you are eligible to be put under. Turns out Lilia definitely in the sort of running. There's the word I was looking for another surgeon skin. Can be an anesthetist for Shen at some point.
True. Well, we hope we're not putting you to sleep. Oh, Chap still in that game pause after seeing that, of course, Zenit potentially had a bit of a PC freeze leading to that death in the mid lane. And that's important because the whole thing about having the likes of your Xayah, Misfortune, Ezreal probably the most famous variety of this AD carry, and of course the Kai'Sa after you get the upgraded Q, is that you just wave clear mid for such a long time. And when you have Kai'Sa as well, you're looking to clear the wave very quickly, disappear off the map, and then threaten showing up into that Renekton's lane. Because as we said, the Gnar is the point of pressure from the side of Burning Core right now. You do want to have that matchup being aggressive. You want to take those hard trades and make sure the Renekton doesn't get access to the wave, doesn't get to heal back up, and doesn't get to take those high rage trades with empowered abilities. So if you then suddenly have the Renekton turning around one of these trades with that W stun and then having Kai'Sa fly in because they've wave cleared mid and they're free across the map, it becomes very difficult for Gnar to play out their side lanes the way that they want to, as we said, the point of pressure for the side of Burning Core right now. So for Kai'Sa to randomly die, that takes a lot of the threat away from Burning Core and what they want to do in the map in the next couple of minutes.
And we already saw that the Hawks had considered doing Baron. They certainly had the damage. They just didn't pull off quick enough. And that put them in a difficult spot. You know, having Kai'Sa on the map is so much of your damage right now, as you kind of mentioned. It's so much of your playmaking with that killer instinct. Be able to follow up with whatever plays the rest of the squad makes. And, you know, if it stands, Burning Core will be feeling exceptionally pleased they got a pick onto the Kai'Sa. If it doesn't stand, well, we'll have to see where the game state is, right?
For sure. I guess, you know, we've talked about this game a fair amount, but it's also worth noting that, so what happens in the LJL is that you do have 8 games in a day, which also means that between 3 of us on the broadcast, it gets a little bit hard to bring everything in a day outside of time zones too. That also means that each team plays twice in a day. So Burning Core and the Hawks will go on to play another game today. We're going to have Burning Core reprising their performance, coming back on the stage against Crest Gaming Act, who will then go on to play, Crest Gaming Act will play Axes, and then we've got the Hawks coming back for their second game of the day at the very end of the runnings against Axes. So we've got 2 more teams yet to play. In terms of our power rankings, we do think that the 4 games that we have today probably teams which are going to be finding their feet a little bit more shaky in this early season, but it'd be really interesting to see if any of these changes has miraculously found everyone on the same page and get everyone comes out of the gates very quickly. Because particularly for a team like Axis, for instance, they had 2 splits last year where they had a 0-6 and 0-8 start. If they can pick up 1 win in their opening week, that's huge for that team and their history as an org.
Big time. And, you know, obviously we expect probably Burning Core and the Hawks to have an edge over CGA and Axis respectively. But in that Axis CGA game that's coming up, actually, I'm really curious to see who's going to come out this early season stronger. We are expecting to be probably towards the lower half of the table, where Burning Core and Hawks definitely looking to make a run for the top half. And I'm curious to see whether those predictions hold true.
For sure. I mean, if we go back to the Hawks again, last spring, we talked about how they finished stone dead last, right? Because of Axis having that Princess run, that miracle performance, and then CJ and Burning Core tie-breaking for that 6th place spot. The Hawks in the early split of spring came out a bit like a solo queue team. They had strong individual players. Dash was on that team, of course, in the top lane, and they were capitalizing with their strong individual play in terms of their instincts against teams that hadn't really set in place all of their communication structures, their early games, their drafts and stuff like that, and just kind of taking teams apart just by sheer force of will, shall we say. The problem is they didn't really evolve from that state. What I'm looking at in terms of both these teams is, again, we have strong individual players, but what the Hawks have shown seems to be less like, oh, I'm just outplaying you, and more about we understand how the game should be played at this point, and that's why we're playing accordingly. That's what's important for me in this game so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right to call it out because, the Hawks of yesteryear, quite literally, didn't really evolve past that kind of solo queue mentality. And that was their downfall in the end, as the rest of the LJL kind of stepped it up in the way they were playing around the map and responding to the Hawks' incredibly aggressive lane positions. And I think it is good to see a little bit more coordination, a little bit more, I won't necessarily call it reserve, but awareness, perhaps is the way to put it, from the Hawks. And that's a great sign. And it does mean that we've got a bit more of an even match on our hands,
I think, well, yeah, I think, because it's not perfect, of course, that Baron play not great from the side of the Hawks, but the play just before that, or a couple of minutes before that, where we saw the kill onto the Gnar, and then Olaf try and clean up the play, and then the Olaf died too, and then Gnar teleports back for nothing. That was a really good example for me of the Hawks bringing all their resources to the point in the map where they were needed at the time, in appropriate time, and knowing that regardless of like how many, well, regardless of how Burning Core had responded, they were probably going to be first to the punch, and they swung and did end up connecting with a solid blow. They get 2 kills, they get a tower, and they end up snowballing the top side of the map from that point after taking that tower. That's the kind of player I'm thinking, yeah, okay, cool. I don't know who's shot calling for on this team, but it looks like the information flow seems to be pretty good.
Yeah, and like at least around these Dragonflies, it's been relatively back and forth. One's gone pretty heavily in favor of, or rather, objective fight. Let's broaden that out a little bit. One's gone in favor of the Hawks, whereas they managed to pick up the couple kills and end up moving over to the Infernal Drake, and then the other side of that, that would be the Herald fight into the Infernal Drake. Get that correct in my mind. And of course, we just had that Baron play where Burning Core came out ahead. So there is definitely a world where one or more of these big objective fights, particularly now we are post 20 minutes, could definitely lead to the game just flying wide open because Baron comes at the end of the next big fight, surely.
Absolutely, because as much as like, oh wow, stable map state, good, strong lane allocation. Yeah, if you throw a Baron, it's still a throw a Baron. You've given over one of these huge neutral objectives. So okay, that's the next hurdle. Let's see how the Hawks transition from what seems to be good lane assignments and individual points of power into something which kind of turns the screws and makes sure that Burning Core can't really get back into this game.
Gonna interrupt you there because breaking news from production, little bit of inside knowledge. If you are watching, of course, which you shouldn't be because you're watching us over on the LoL Esports page, you would see underneath all the little stats of the various players. JJ, a little bit of sleuthing from Mass Swan has basically discovered that the kill that was on the scoreboard in favor of Yuhi over Zenit has been removed. Zenit is back to being deathless. The gold has been reversed. And that means that a chrono break is pretty surely underway or finishing up soon. So there's that update. And of course, to the people who are just tuning in or not quite sure what's going on, we have had a game pause. By the sounds of it, Zenit had a computer freeze, which led directly to a death in the mid lane for the Hawks AD carry. That appears to be being chrono break right now.
We could pretty much tell that from the out. We saw, oh, that's a very strange death for that Kai'Sa to have. They were pretty far ahead, and they had both summoners and ult. Okay, that's probably going to have some problems coming across with it. So it's taken a little bit of a while. I hope you guys managed to enjoy your stay right now. Got yourselves a hot cup of something and a blanket. It's been a little bit chilly down here in good old London. That's where I am right now. But comfy in my room and happily watching some LJL, or at least will be soon.
Absolutely. And to clarify what exactly a chrono break is, as well as people may not be aware, effectively this is some nice little bit of technology that Riot have put into League of Legends, which allows pro games to be rewound. Quite literally, you can rewind the game state to before Zenit died from the computer freeze. Everything will be reset to just before the engage happened, at which point the game will be unpaused with game state rewound to before the incident occurred. Takes a little bit of time
Yeah.
to set up, takes a bit of time to approve, and that's why we have got this extended pause. But it does mean that we don't have to restart the game over an issue like this.
For sure. No more of those Season 5 EDG Fnatic quarterfinals where Gragas can't detonate his Q, so is disabled for the rest of that series. We do have...
yes.
There have been some very famous pauses across League. Of course, there was the Silver Scrapes, the CLG
Yeah. Why is that
masterpiece.
famous?
Why is that famous? Is because it was played for about good 8 hours in Yes, that was a time. And yeah, of course.
No other songs on repeat, just Silver Screams.
Yeah,
on and on and on and on and on.
Yep. I hope you don't get DMCA'd. Oh, wow, imagine if you did that nowadays with like a DMCA'd song. That'd be...
Ooh, if I got DMCA'd for going do, I don't think there's a lot of saving the world at that point.
For sure. That's of
Who
course
knows?
what we do.
If I end up
We check everything that we play.
agents here in the UK, I'm in trouble.
Yes, thankfully, Riot do have that creator safe playlist, which we do defer to in our breaks. And of course, we've managed to chat all the way through this one, so hopefully we will not have to cut to a break just now.
I feel one of our strengths as siblings and just people in general is our ability to just talk mad crap for extended periods of time.
I can't even remember what we've talked about for the last 2 minutes. It's just like, oh yes, this will buy 30 seconds.
I mean, you suggested playing Hangman with chat, and then I kind of revealed I'm not actually looking at chat right now. So you could play Hangman with chat, and I could try and guess. But...
We summon our stand and say 1 second has passed. A whole 20 minutes has passed. And much like on the other side of things on the official broadcast, the LJL casters are doing their best to entertain the crowd as well. And we... Yes, well, there are a great many ramblings to have, dear chat, because it's kind of
ramble about. Like, give me a topic to ramble about. What am I rambling about in this pause?
How the sixth game of today should have started 2 minutes ago, as on the schedule.
I think this is the sixth game should have started a few minutes ago. We are quite a way behind, guys. We could well be up to 30 minutes behind schedule, which is shocking, really.
Get yourself comfy.
Especially for a country like Japan as well, which is notorious. Is notorious the right word? I suppose we'll stick with it. Infamous, notorious, very well known for their punctuality with pretty much everything. Turning up on time is effectively like being 5 minutes late. And, you get whole massive apologies. Like if a train is up to like a minute late, you get massive company-wide apologies. Bullet trains and stuff run down to the second. Like they have delay timers down to like the half minute. I feel like it's pretty nuts. I
have to say, so I myself have never been to Japan like C and Sam have done. I really do want to go on a bullet train just one time. I know the engineering behind them is absolutely insane because I have a background in physics myself, and I know about like you can't actually have a bullet train track like deviate more than a certain amount of degrees. Like it's like in the single, you really can't let a bullet train going at several, 100 kilometers an hour take a corner. That is not how these things work. Also, interestingly enough,
totally.
Because the Shinkansen are so removed from other train tracks too, because they have these specialized tracks, I don't think there has ever been any accident on a bullet train. They are completely free from any kind of commercial accident. It's incredible, yeah.
Doesn't surprise me. Like they're very careful about.
There's a lot of infrastructure being put in place for them, but
I mean, like they effectively, especially because the way Japan is as a country, right, is you've got massive mountain ranges ranging right the way down the island. There's a lot of basically like tunnels bored through the mountains to get Shinkansens across country, not just down the country as well. So there was just a massive feat of engineering to set up the Shinkansen network in the first place.
For sure, yes, a lot of infrastructure being put there. Unfortunately. Don't you go googling and seeing if there actually was one. Okay,
He's found a few.
Fine, right. So ignore that little fun fact I had about Shinkansen, because it turns out I didn't actually have a fun fact. I had a fun lie. I'm delivering you lies. But much unlike the Shinkansen, we are slowly traveling towards our destination. We've been derailed by this pause. We are sat here waiting for hospitality to tell us what's happening. Oh, Sam, have you paused? No, yeah. I saw your face freeze, and I was like,
I
no.
was
Oh,
was
no, not a
looking at some of the
pause, one
stats
person.
on Shinkansen accents, but probably not what I want to talk about on stream. So we'll back away. Not very many though, incidentally, as the guys. But one or two interesting ones, of course, Japan. Very famous for things like tsunamis and earthquakes, where those don't interact particularly well with trains, basically.
Okay, Sam, I'm gonna feed you because I know you don't have chat open right now. I've sat on this
Yeah.
for a little while, but shout out Dragon in chat is asking what item is OP. Moonstaff, Moonstone Manure, and
Oh my
Staff of Flowing
days.
Water.
Yeah.
That is something.
Yep. The
Sus
basic
overlay,
one.
yes, Spoods, we are aware. I didn't quite think we would be sat on the screen for about half an hour. Unfortunately,
I'm multiple people, is what it is.
yeah, Sam's actually both play-by-play and color this game. I am the host. I'm Lexi Mass Swan. I have a new piece of content out with Square One, a podcast which he's been doing there. Yeah, Lexi's on screen
great.
right now. That's the one.
Side note, I am a big fan of that podcast name. What was it? The Electric Recap with the beautiful bit of graphic work on that. Solid work, guys.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. So, of course, if you guys do like the content that we bring here, this is a collaborative a project, that's the one, between myself, Initialize, and Mass One, who is
So
doing
me
production in the
twice
background.
is basically what we
Yeah, so
found out
like
for the
Lexi's
stream.
making sure that we're up to date on stats and what's happening with the things. I'm streaming right now, so that's why I'm occasionally quite distracted and why if the overlay is bad, it's because of me. Congrats. But if you do like what we do on this stream, go check us out. We do have actually, quite fortunately, we have all of our Twitter handles beneath these panels here, even though we're technically not in the right panels. If you want to check us out and support us in our work and go watch our other stuff.
You're not checking Twitter during this pause, are
I'm
you?
not checking Twitter.
How could...
No, I have the Twitter handles on screen because, unlike you, I see my OBS and I see what's happening on the screen.
That's true enough, yeah.
But no, if you do want to follow us on different social media and support us and see what we think about the LJL, we do a lot of content for them. We have our thoughts, we tweet about it, we have our podcast. We've put out 3 hours of content between podcasts, and that's had a lot of condensed content chucked into it between 2 podcast episodes. Do have this broadcast today. We have 3 more games to bring you today, 4 tomorrow, where we will hopefully be introducing a guest caster too. No spoilers as to who that is, but looking to really interact with our community, and that of course does include you, chat. So if you do want to join our discords, find us on other social media, please feel free to do so. Do it now while there's still a pause.
On a complete tangent, Alex, how do you like your cereal?
I like it milky, Sam. I like my cereal milky.
Me too.
You cretin.
I like my milky cereal. But I guess at this point, I want to string us around to obviously Shadow Dragon in chat was asking OP items. Tell me a little bit more about why Moonstone Manure and Staff of Flame Water is so OP. That combination right now, it feels like it's just nuts.
So one of the reasons is that so what happens is Moonstone Manure is that when you affect a champion with an ability, you end up healing the lowest health allied champion to you within a certain range. That's on like a 2-second cooldown. So if you have spam of ability, stuff like Ivan can proc it very well. It feels like the new Ardent Sense, the new Athene's Unholy Grail in that kind of sense. But the whole thing is you don't actually need to heal and shield your allies. You can just affect enemy teammates too. So if you have really good long range poke and like who's a good example of this? Someone like
Lilia. Lilia?
Someone like Lilia can do this, right? Because you're throwing out the Swell Season on a very low cooldown. You end up proccing this a lot. And because you've got that DOT, I believe that ends up proccing it multiple times too if they still have that DOT on them. And then because this interaction happens, it means that so many champions which aren't really enchanters can become pseudo enchanters. Staff of Flowing Water, when you do heal or shield an enemy, an ally. Not an enemy, that's not how enchanters work. That would be quite counterproductive. You end up giving AP and movement speed, and the longer you're in combat and you start stacking these buffs, the more impactful they get onto yourself and this allied champion. So when you have someone like Lilia giving AP and movement speed to a Kai'Sa who has really good AP scalings, who loves having that boost speed, someone like Xayah who doesn't necessarily have the AP scalings but loves that boost speed, it can be so hard to take down these carries who are getting these heals, getting these extra peeling kiting ability and the extra ability to do damage. Heck, there was a game in the UKL which Sam and I were spectating on Thursday because we're involved in that broadcast now as well. In fact, I will be on there later today if you want to catch
Oh,
me
nice
for
plug.
another
Well done, sir. There we
couple of
go.
games in the UK scene. We saw a Kai'Sa top lane with Ignite, which is already Fever Dream standard, and then there were two Moonstaff combos from the bot lane where I believe it was Sona Lux was played. So Kai'Sa gets like an extra 80 AP,
Oh,
which is an extra
nuts for
item,
Kai'Sa.
an extra 30%
Does she
movement
get?
speed.
Does she get the upgrade from that? Can she get an
No,
upgrade
so it has to
just
be, no.
because it
So
has
the
to be
way
personal
the way
stats?
Kai'Sa ends up working with that is it has to come from your own stats.
Okay.
So
Thinking
yeah.
that would be a really busted combination.
So otherwise it would have been really weird with like her E upgrade. It's like, oh, I've stacked Rage Blade 6 times, so I get extra attack speed, and I immediately upgrade my E. And also, if you lose those stats, you lose the upgrade. And if you end up getting the stats again, yes, you do. So if you end up getting the AD and then you sell that back, you don't get to keep the upgrade. And also, if you end up having to buy that upgrade again, you still have to do the animation, which means standing still in combat would be quite bad.
Absolutely.
But if you have some of the... So Aphelios actually has a lot of AP scalings too, for instance, particularly on the Flamethrower and a bit on the ult too.
Yes, Venom, yeah.
A lot of the reasons these champions say... This is a really good one. Shyvana had like a 0.01 AP scaling on like her Q damage. It was really weird on hit. The reason a lot of these champions have AP scalings is because Baron gives you AP. So it means that when a champion gets Baron, it gives you a meaningful upgrade in that sense. Now that you've got Staff of Flowing Water giving so much free AP on actual quite meta champions that's being stacked multiple times, a lot of these champions with these kind of secondary AP ratios get really powerful really quickly when these items come into meta, because while you're still building like your meta build of like, I don't know, like your Kai'Sa going for lethality into all this other stuff, you get to have yourself like extra execute damage on your passive, extra damage on your Q, and your W have really good scalings on that. Your shield on your ult also gets that too. Getting this Moonstaff and all this other stuff has had ridiculous knock-on effects to
And
other
it
champions
also
and their
ends
random AP scalings.
I mean, it also ends up with things like carries which don't normally bring that much utility suddenly can bring in way more utility. Lilia, yeah, you've got your sleep, which is, fab, don't get me wrong, but actually now bringing in heals and move speed and AP buffs on top of doing damage, or Nidalee is like more than just offering the heal with the Nature's Surge, Primal Surge. There we go, got the name right in the end.
That's the one.
The fact that you can just offer more there while still doing damage, while still being a carry threat, it's just so strong. It's just like, here is more kit for all your kit.
Like don't get me wrong. It's the problem with someone like Nidalee is that in some games you're sat there as Nidalee and you think, my job is to make sure that this carry is under threat. If you have a Moonstone Renewer and then the Staff of Flowing Water, you don't always have that threat because you can't jump in with a Night Harvester Lichbane or a Zhonya's to help yourself dive in and threaten a carry. But if you're in a comp where the enemy team is like forced to run into you, say you have like they have some really low range compositions and they have an Olaf and a Renekton and someone like a Galio and a Kai'Sa that's running in. If you have, and of course,
Quite common right now, really.
A lot of these champions are very common, yes, and Aatrox is included in that, and most of the top laners are, in fact. If you have to run into a Moonstone Renewer, several Moonstone Renewers with lots of heals and shields coming through, while you've got a lot of disengagey champions, like say like an Orianna, Syndra, and you've got an Aphelios in bot lane, if you have to run into that team because the Syndra can catch you out from range and the Nidalee can still keep throwing spears and stuff like that, you get to siege to absolute high heaven. And then also, if you ever run into them, you have to get through this extra peel and shields, much like the Sona Lux Sona Taric, Sona Lux, which we've hated for so long in professional League of Legends, that these items get so much value for their gold.
And of course, it's not just Sona Tarix or Sona Lux anymore right now. We've got people like Seraphine turning up.
You can build that item as well.
Morgana a little bit as well. There's a few people.
And the thing with someone like Seraphine is that her Q is so easy to land from a long range. It doesn't necessarily chunk out as much as some other poke champions, but just being able to activate that Moonstone Renewer and then, of course, the Staff Flowing Water too gives you a lot of value for that item. When you get that shield and when you have all of these other aura effects, much like Sona does too, or Karma does, right? You end up proccing this item a lot and you get a lot of value out of it.
All right, well, there you go. But that's kind of why that item combo is so busted. It's why that certain champions are building more support items than you'd necessarily expect. Of course, the likes of Ivan are doing it because it's Ivan. It's what it does.
Ivan top, of course, though.
Yes, of course. I mean, like we've seen one game in pro not look so good for various reasons. We won't probably get into.
I'm trying to remember if that was
dubious positioning from AD carry.
It wasn't Schalke Vitality. Was it the
XL
SK?
Yes,
XLSK.
and it was Cries for XL who ran that last night in the LEC.
For sure. Yes. Well, turns out making Ivern permanently ranged and then like being able to get extra on hit damage really early on into the game means that you're actually a ranged bully in top lane now, which I find completely fantastic.
Oh,
It honestly incredible.
yep. Do you
Much as
remember the days of Elise top?
I do. Well, I wasn't playing because that was season 3. Because I started
Mhm.
early season 4. That's when I started playing. So I've been playing for 6 years. But of course, when he talks to Lexi, he was playing since season 2 and stuff like that. He loves his release Diana and all the other stuff. Although he's gone to get a
Mhm.
coffee, so we can talk as much crap about him
Yeah,
as we want
he's
right
not
now.
here.
He's not here.
Excellent.
Lovely. So
Look,
everyone,
guys in chat, this is your
let's
chance.
let's have
To
no
be,
no no.
be
Let's have
nice
a,
to Mass
what's your
Swan.
favorite
Don't be
memory?
nice to his face. Be nice to him now.
What's your favorite memory of Mass Swan? That's what we're
My
gonna do
favorite
instead.
memory of Mass Swan. Man, I had some really cool late night conversations with him and a couple other good friends at like 4 5 a.m. Back when the world was less complicated, we were able to meet up in person without fear of infecting each
Before
other.
the
which
end
is-
times.
Before the end times, indeed. That's dubious. Don't pretend it. Either way. So that was probably some of my better memories there.
Absolutely. Oh, you see, we could have talked crap about him right now. Choosing to
Nice.
leave a little bit of positivity on the world, chat. You should do the
Exactly.
same. Leave the world a little brighter than you left it. That's the one.
And the thing is, the reason I do this, so it means I can be mean to people to their face. So, my brother Alex, you suck.
He's awful. Awful. He can't even hold his own in a pause for like
Nope.
45 minutes. It's been a while, Sam.
How long did it take you to bring down Moonstone Renewer and stuff flowing water? That was like what? 10
Hey,
minutes?
it was comprehensive, and I thought,
efficiency.
hey, you know what? This would be pretty fun. I can talk about
No,
how.
genuinely, it was pretty good. I just want to
Yeah.
throw not that word, crap at you. There we go. That
Lovely,
sounds more
cool.
appropriate.
I actually think that it kind of as a flow-on effect, the staff of flowing water.
Oh, very good. Yeah. Smoothing.
I think that we're probably going to see a lot more of Serpent Fang being built, which is an AD carry item.
Yes.
Which does extra
that's the shield breaker, isn't
It
it?
does extra damage to shielded targets, which can be really important if you're someone like some of the long range AD carries. Say, I don't know, if you're diving into, again, one of these big shieldy teams as someone like a Samira, you're probably going to need that to cut through the first 1,000 or so health on top of the entire team if you're doing AoE damage. And say if there's a Mountain Soul too, it gets very valuable, and if it's already a shielding champion that's using the Moonstone Renewer, then yeah, get a lot of value out of that. So if we're going to see a lot more of these kind of cheesy multiple Moonstaff combos coming across, I think Serpent's Fang gives you a lot of ability as an AD, from the AD carry position to mitigate some of that damage. So we saw a game, again, in that same game with like the double Moonstaff Sona Lux, there was a Twitch in that game. And as soon as like all these shields pop on, if you have this Twitch coming out of stealth, huge amounts of attack speed with the Serpent's Fang, their shields immediately disappear.
Like as a context, like right, it's a lethality item, which is no bad thing if you're building some of it anyway. So someone like Jin, for example, wouldn't hate it.
Well, if you're going
passive,
collector anyway, right? Then there's definitely ways you can stack that.
Absolutely. And like so as a kind of context, guys, Serpent's Fang, Shield Reaver's the passive, and that's
Cool name.
50 base damage, but it's plus 40% bonus attack damage to people that are shielded, right? Which is like a massive amount to people who are shielded. Like you will shred shields, particularly if it's
remember all
like
the shield shred
shields.
mechanics which were added into various champions kits and then just like removed. So Aurelia's passive. So Aurelia's passive on release was like at max stacks did 300% damage to shielded targets, and I'll tell you why.
Like, it was really cool.
We just came out of season 7 when season 8 dropped and Aurelia came in, and the Aatrox rework came in. And we'd had Karma, and we'd had Lux and Lulu and Janna. We'd had Ardent Sensor for like a solid 8 months at that point, and
that was the world where Ardent Sensor, where basically the whole deal was in season 7 worlds was who reaches Ardent Sensor first, congratulations, you won. Unless your name was Misfit and you were running Perfect Battle Leona.
Yeah, because but the reason was that they still had the Ardent Sensor and stuff like that on an Ivern jungle, who's the other champion in the game really from the jungle role that can do that. So yes.
See, Ivern's always the one with the weird builds that break everything. Yeah. It's always
I think so. Ever since that point, kind of season 8 onwards, we've really struggled to see the same level enchanters in bot lane. I think basically the reason is because of vision game. Because if you're going in as let's say a Seraphine support, something like that, you don't get to walk into Fog of War and be safe. Rakan can. Rakan is the one pseudo enchanter support who, used to build Ardent Sensor as well in certain matters, that could potentially go in, get wards for an important dragon fight and a baron fight, herald, stuff like that. All really important objectives in the game right now, and stand a better chance of surviving. That's why stuff like Leona, Alistar, Nautilus are so prominent and have been for so long. Even if you think, oh man, why don't you just pick enchanter supports? Because they can't do the vision game, which is what most of Pro League of Legends ends up becoming at this level.
And look, if you are going to want to run enchanted supports, then somebody else has to run frontline, or you have to be very coordinated as squishy comps. Like,
Well, and
it's
because frontline is
doable,
not in the
but it's
jungle right
very
now,
hard.
because you don't have
Exactly.
that engage
Exactly where I was going,
frontline
yeah.
from the jungle stuff, like, I mean, we're seeing a little bit of Sejuani coming through, but when you've got really strong champions like Lilia, Graves, Nidalee,
Olaf,
Kindred.
Pantheon.
Oh my
Alexander,
gosh.
Nymeria, Hapgood.
We're in
The
game!
wait is over, chat. We are into game. The pause is done. Switch those scenes. Let's get back onto the
Heck
game.
yes.
Zenit has been returned from the grave. Thank you for sticking through the pause. Thank you for sticking with our impromptu podcast. Hell, you got to learn a little bit about why Moonstaff or Moonstone Renewal plus Staff Flowing Water is so damn strong. But we can now talk about the LJL.
You know what's
It's 23
also
minutes,
really
49
strong?
seconds into the game. What?
What's also really strong is Medjai's, if you buy it and you get a number of stacks on it, because it's a really cheap
yes.
legendary item. Leandri's Anguish, built up by Dasher on the Victor, 10 stacks on the Medjai Soul Stealer, has Phase Rush, does have a lot of move speed at that point. There's a dragon coming up. Victor is in a very strong point. I'm looking to see how much damage Dasher can do in this fight.
All right, this would be Infernal Soul Point for Burning Core. Hawks get this and they tie up the dragon count. It could be a massive one. Apperman is off vision, off to this side, looking to cause a flank. That's the death ray coming through and gets much down, but Corporal goes in and gets 2! But that's not going to be enough. Corporal takes a lot of trade back, but it will force Burning Core away from the Infernal Drake. 2 Drakes apiece, Hawks get what they wanted, and everyone goes out with their lives intact.
Very good restraints of aggression by the Hawks. Sorry, got something in my throat right now. Do you mind just taking over?
I'm just gonna leave it there and let people hear
Lovely,
you.
thanks. What I did is I was talking for so long, and I haven't had a chance to refill my drink. Obviously, just I was like, wow, okay, this is really hard to talk right now. Really good restraint by the side of the Hawks. You see that combo line from Corporal? You can follow up on that. They chose not to. They know that the cask has been used. Corporal is safe, still has flash, still has ult, just popped Aftershock. The Corporal's not in threat of dying at that point. You're about to finish the dragon, take the freebie, just disengage from that point. Take the cask as well away from Proud, because you use that to try and disengage that fight, and you just win de facto, even if it could have maybe snowballed into a team fight win.
All right, I've also got a call out here. One of those newer items as well. Onar picked up Force of Nature second, which of course is magic resist, but
heck.
it's also move speed. So every time you get hit from your absorb passive means that you're getting 6 move speed and 4 magic resist. That stacks a number of times. I think it's 5. And that basically means I think it's from unique abilities as well. So great in team fights for giving you move speed and magic resist. It's an old school item that's kind of back in the game.
But I'm gonna throw it out there. Victor with Phase Rush, using his Q for the move speed, now having his full upgrades, he slows on non-periodic damage too. Lichbane giving movement speed. Dasher is going to be very hard to chase down. I think this is more really for what Zenit's going to be trying to do. The Gale Force also makes that difficult though, so I don't know how much use this is going to have in an aggressive sense. This seems more in a defensive sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, with Fleet and with Hyper, there is a world where Nard does get quite fast with that, but it's effectively
And
sort of
Stridebreaker
like...
too, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
just
it's
slowing
not
down the
Nimbus,
competition.
but it's not bad. Yeah.
For sure.
And it's a little bit more, especially if you're in Mega Gnar, and he's like, I need to get in place for a decent Gnar. Bit of additional move speed, nothing to sniff at.
Absolutely not. So I guess we just check in on the game state again. Teleports are up from all 4 solo laners. Of course, both mid laners running that too. Apperman down in the bottom lane, shoving in onto the enemy side of the map. They've got 2 items. The Gordrink and the Starix means that Apperman will be diving in. A bit more impunity than it would have been before that item was completed. And we are left with the 80 carries, as we said, trying to wave clear mid and moving out onto the map from that point.
And of course, is Essence Reaver in second on Xayah? And I know you think that Essence Reaver is damn strong. I think we're going to have to wait to talk about items though a little bit, because this positioning around mid lane is making me a little nervous, especially with Baron live and the Hawks already having proved they're willing to go for that Baron. Last time didn't work out as well as they would like.
For sure, Essence Reaver is a crit Spellblade item now, so think of it like your old Trinity Force on a lot of the 80 carries that would want to build it, because it gives you the mana regen, gives you the crit, still gives you that Spellblade extra on-hit damage. And when you're someone like Xayah who scales so well from having crit on those feathers, of course they scale off of it, the W, which gives you that attack, just that kind of that base attack bonus rather, so you like your auto attacks do 20% more damage. You go in with that Sheen proc, you Gale Force forward with a W, you auto attack someone once and they lose a lot of HP.
And that's always kind of been Zaya's issue, is she's actually very short range. If she can attack someone with the feathers, go through them, they extend, wonderful. But her auto attack range, not all that long. And so the ability to get on top of people and get your feathers further behind them to make it easier to set up your routes and harder for enemies to get out of them is just great news for her.
For sure. So we're gonna play a bit of ping pong, probably as these players settle back in, because they've been sat in their seats for as long as we have, but they've had to think about what they're gonna do when they go back onto the Rift and continue the game from that point.
And Tussle has now completed his mythic items. We've got himself Leandri's Anguish. Not sure whether he had that quite before I talked about it, but either way, picks it up second here, so that's good news for him. That's in second to the Zhonya's, which, as I said, a little bit of an odd choice, but either way's come through and seems to have worked out relatively well right now. Lichbane done for Victor, though, and guess what? The Hawks are starting up Baron one more time, and they're going to dare Burning Core to come and contest.
Going to, of course, Kai'Sa, one of the better Baron takers. Appamen and Gad... yeah, well, everyone's on the scene now. We got ourselves a 5v5 with the Baron's regen.
And Mega Gnar literally runs out as the teleport finishes, so Hawks pull off, but they've burned Ray Falky's teleport, they've burned Gary Aru's teleport to boot
Double
as well.
TP advantage.
And that is all the Hawks will really want from that initial play.
They are just posturing. So there is an Infernal Dragon up in 15 seconds. That's what they really want. Are they going to threaten some kind of trade? Tussle sat at 2/3 HP, going to make it a little bit harder for, once again, that flash Q into ult Zhonya's combo. That's what we're looking for, is for one of those more easy combos to land from the side of Hawks. Whereas Yuhi moving up, getting lane priority. Appamen doing the same on the other side, but Zen is going in.
Go in! Oh, that Icathian range shreds Yuhi's HP bar. That will mean that AD carries in a very difficult spot. Proud also now has to flash away. No one is dead, but Burning Core have two members with desperately low HP.
So the Hawks say, okay, screw the dragon, let's go up to Baron. We've chunked them out enough that Burning Core cannot contest. Yuhi gonna get a bit of that. Okay, the Honey Fruit really important. That means that they can maybe look for something afterwards, but the Baron's gonna be gone. That's gonna be an objective trade across the board.
Is Baron just goes, they will get the Infernal Soul, point will Burning Core, but that is not necessarily the silver lining you wanted. If they can get Infernal Soul in 5 minutes, then maybe it will be worth it, but Baron buff on a Victor with this amount of damage, this Icathian Rain coming out of Zenith as well. This could be a rough few minutes for Burning Core.
Burning Core have yet to have a good engage, and now you're going to have to be dealing with multiple lanes of pressure coming in with the Baron minions, while you're already struggling to stave off a lot of these long-range champions like the Kai'Sa W's, the Lilia E, and of course the Victor E too. The Burning Core are going to struggle to hold a lot of these turrets. And the question is, can the Hawks transfer this into an insurmountable advantage?
We'll have to wait and see. Of course, there is about 2 minutes on this Baron buff. They've reset their set to go and push things out. You can see on your minimap, Gadiadu is shoving up that top wave, trying to get the waves as far out as possible and give Hawks as little time around these inner turrets as possible. Done an okay job of that so far, honestly, and Yuhi does get to this mid lane wave before the Hawks can push it in super aggressively, and they've got a minute and a half to work with by the Hawks, but at least credit to Burning Core in terms of doing as much wave management before that shove can really come in as they could.
Caspuk coming out from Proud, shunts Zenit away, maybe just wondering about, of course, that 3-out, and Kai'Sa doing a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Having the Collector, having the Gale Force, that's a lot of low health threat from the Kai'Sa, who already has that on her passive too, really just stacks together with all of that champion's identity. What this Baron is meaning is that the Hawks can go in, try and take down some of the jungle camps too, that extra secondary gold advantage coming in for the red team.
Sort of a 1-3-1 here, but Corporal's roaming between mid and top, buying time, stopping easy collapses from the top side. And top lane tier 2 goes down. Ray Farki's going to try and hold on against Appamen here, but that cannon shoving away at that tower, also very, very low on the HP bar. Only the one turret thus far, about a minute left to go, but I imagine these tier 2s aren't long for the world.
That's what you'd think. We've got to fight on the bot side. I'm not sure how that's going to go, particularly because, once again, you've got a high-level Kai'Sa, you've got Lilia roaming across the map. It's pretty quick for a lot of the Hawks team to rotate to a fight, were to Ray Farki to commit to that. But where the real lead from the Hawks is, production is pointing out on the side here, is that it's mostly on Dasher. That's pretty obvious. 501 has a Medjai's. 4 items. I like the Banshee's pickup. Potentially stops a Gnar dive into the backline, finishing off Dasher, and allows this Victor to play these fights so much more aggressively.
Lost that mid lane tier 2, lost that top lane tier 2. This bot lane tier 2 on a sliver of HP, and the Hawks will rotate over and claim that one as well, just as the Baron buff ends, for around a 4,000 gold Baron power play, which is nothing to sniff at, and it gives them the first truly commanding gold lead of the game, which has been very close, even if the map status felt a little bit Hawks favoured, if only because the fights have been going their way.
Yes, we'd say that. I mean, the gold is not. It's not really capitulated for Burning Core right now. They're definitely still in this game in terms of the items they have. But you look at particularly the XP, 2 levels in mid, 2 levels in bot. It's looking pretty bad on that front.
For this top lane.
Max level for that top lane, of course. So you've got, I mean, particularly the tier 3 Kai'Sa roll gives you so much of a shield, so much range to engage with things with. Zenit has a lot of power to play with.
We mentioned the gold lead being back and forth and very even. Then suddenly there's a dip towards the red side. That is a significant increase to
That's your Baron power play.
5k gold lead. And then they back up and they pick up a whole new item to their name. Zenit now has a full completed Guardian Angel, which is great news, alongside a second stopwatch. He's at 4.5 items now. You check in at Victor as well. That Banshees you mentioned, he's got that magic penetration jewel as well. That's the name escapes.
The Blighting Jewel.
Blighted Jewel. There we go. But we're going to see an engage in mid lane. Once getting knocked up,
Affamed's
Proud
coming.
also desperately low. In comes the Killer Instinct. It's a good stopwatch to stop the kill coming out straight away. But Proud has no time. The Shockwave comes out, but Tussle goes down to Yuhi. And that means Apperman has got to buy time, but he has got Gordrig and he's a tanky boy. Zenit flashing in, but the Featherstorm is decent, but Zenit kills Yuhi anyway. And the Kai'Sa gets the double, lands that Prey Seeker as well. And Rayfaki's trying to run away, trying to kite, take as much of the wave out as possible. But he can't stay close enough, and that means 3 dead for 1. So Hawks get priority in mid lane. Hawks are going to shove in, and with the death timers, they might even look to think about ending this.
Proud gets a bit caught. It's a bit unfortunate for the side of Burning Core. They don't get to funnel back into a single direction. Use the Xayah Feathers. Use the Orianna Ball to try and stave off a further fight. And because of that, it becomes too omnidimensional. Zenit gets to run rampant. Apperman does too. Tussle does go down. But it looks like the Hawks are looking to claim this first game of their season. And they have taken an inhibitor on the way to that.
They won't go for the very aggressive play. You could see a little bit of uncertainty in their movements there down the mid lane, primarily because this Infernal Drake was spawning as well, and they decide to take the safer option. They'll claim the inhibitor in mid, they'll move right back over the Infernal Drake, and they will have that third one to their name. They are also now at Infernal Soul Point. And hell, they've got 3 Infernal Drakes to their name as we go into this replay.
Important things, Rayfaki just timed out of the Mega Gnar yet again, and Proud walks too far forward. Has that Zhonya's? That's cool, that's nice, but it's Imperial Mandate, it's not Aegis. So Grag's not too tanky, and because they've split up in their retreat, they don't get to form any of this phalanx. 3 members on Apperman seems like it's enough, but it's not. Gordrinker Q has the Sterix as well. Apperman more than healthy at the end of this fight, and Zenit gets to rejoin the fight with the ult. Well, not the ult. Not the ult. It just goes around the back of it because there's a lot of movement.
Yeah, just use.
It's like, wow, he used that earlier onto Proud.
Yeah, it's fine. But either way, it's good news for the Hawks who have pretty much everything to lose in this game now. They have all the items. They have the Victor at 601, the Kai'Sa at 304, all the items they could possibly want. It's Burning Core triaging best they can to try and find their way back in. Xayah's at 3 items. That's great news. This Orianna at 3 as well. Also not bad, but, you know, there's no voice staff there. There's no death cap. Not the strongest builds as yet. And Yuhi getting hit by a couple ability. Gets taken down to about 2/3 HP. Feels like that's been the case for Yuhi. These last few fights been a bit lower than he would like.
I wonder if actually the Hawks playing into this mid-game pro ping-pong strategy is letting Burning Core take a more comfortable state on this map. Because at least they're getting the same amount of lanes as farm as the Hawks are. They have a potential that Yuhi gets some really good combos off. It's not likely that the Hawks lose a fight at this point. And they have managed to start up this Baron 2-manning with Apperman, who is so tanky as you saw in that last fight. See if they can get anything more from this.
Here comes it. That Gale Force Order Wonder Dasher takes 2/3 of HP up. That's a great engagement, Corporal. The headbutt pulverize is fabulous, but wait, the shockwave once gets Lilia. The jungler is dead. Corporal now desperately low as well, and Burning Core finally find an engage, and they get 2 critical members. Dasher is all but down. He has no teleport to get back in. There's no smite. Burning Core have done it. They get the Baron off this.
I said it was unlikely that the Hawks lose a fight. Well, what happens is Dasher tanks the Baron, takes a lot of damage at the initial stage of it, and can't turn around, can't run them down. There was no Lilia ult to start splitting up that fight yet again, and Burning Core capitalize.
Oh, that shockwave onto Lilia was everything they needed. Let's look at this again. I thought Corporal had found the engage they needed.
So the first thing is Yuhi gets that really good Gale Force W into QE combo, gets the root onto Dash, and it takes most of their HP. Tussle gets right into the thick of things, and that's not really good in this fight. So looking at the two carries, it is just the HP advantage for Burning Core, and they somehow find themselves a fight.
And this game isn't over yet. We're back down to about a 3,000 gold lead. Check out that damage. Yep,
Yeah.
Yuhi gets some nasty work done there in that one.
I mean, it says a lot that Dash can still do that much damage while being about 200 HP for the majority of that fight.
I wonder how much that was Chaos Storm.
A lot of it probably will be, and then Leandri's burn thereon
Yeah, true
after. We do have teleport from Apperman now, and I do think that the Hawks should have, once again, when they're playing around this Baron, focus on using their Renekton and the Kai'Sa's to jump into a play. This Kai'Sa is damn fed. You want to fly into these 2v1 fights in the sideline and try and snowball kills off of that, and because they commit to the 5v5, they're allowing Burning Core to be a bit more comfortable in their composition.
That is 2 Baron attempts from the Hawks, which have been really heavily punished by Burning Core. That's, obviously it's early in the season and these things sometimes take a bit of work. Baron dances are an intricate art and require decent dance lessons. And I wonder whether the Hawks are trying to do a 2-step when they should be trying a waltz here. Not looking as comfortable around that big purple worm as they perhaps should be.
All that dancing stuff, nah. I'm a rock and battle fan. I got my mosh pits. That's really what they're going for. I mean, like, I guess, there's a lot to be said about how Twitch chat is the mosh pit to League of Legends, like that the mosh pit is to a rock concert. Although, I mean, I'm not sure we can get them to do a circle pit, but maybe we're just not trying hard enough, Sam.
Just cat jams close enough to headbanging as we go, guys.
Can everyone just type circles in chat? That's what we need. Get themselves into that.
The circle pit.
Whereas
might be
circles
are
rotations and Burning Core rotating to the bot lane.
Ooh, that's a lot of speed. Ragnarok plus that dissonance. That's just so damn tanky. Once burns Ragnarok and tries to get something up a Corporal. Now in danger as well as Yuhi gets a decent Gale Force auto off again. On the front foot, this Xayah definitely doing a lot of work with 4 items complete. I believe he's had Lord Dom's regards in inventory now as well. Yuhi trying to get some damage. That's a great roll to Zenit, but the damage is fabulous back in return. In comes the Killer Instinct. Yuhi gets flashed on. He's dead. Shot down onto the Xayah, and the AD carry is done already. Apperman gets in there as well, but it's Zenit that gets the double. Proud falls down. The bot lane is gone for Burning Core as the Infernal Soul spawns. Burning Core are now in desperate trouble. He's going to get caught. Infernal Soul goes over and the Hawks will claim the jungler to boot. The Baron means nothing. And the Hawks find another team fight victory here around the Infernal Drake.
And let the bodies hit the floor. We've had our mosh pits, had our circle pits all the way around the map. Round and round we go, and the Hawks get Infernal Soul.
Yeah, I don't care about mosh pits or circle pits right now. I care about Baron and Dragon pits because there has been a few straight throws from teams getting caught out where they shouldn't be.
Shockwave in the wave.
Shockwave used to clear the wave, trying to get as many of these minions down. They'll lose the inhibitor, but with Yuhi and Proud up in about 5 or so seconds, they're not going to push to end. But that Infernal Soul with 4 Infernal Drakes backing it up gives Hawks so much damage.
And I'm going to throw it out there. I'd much rather this kind of game where it is messy, there's stuff happening, people trying to win the game, rather than Sengoku V3 from last spring where it went to 54 minutes and nothing really happened. We're getting ourselves an entertaining fiasco between these two teams. Hawks right now have themselves that advantage of the Infernal Soul and the gold lead, and of course their carries being deathless and having a lot of items to bring to these final fights of the game.
It has been a hell of a saga, guys. We have been here with pauses. We're 41 minutes in. It's Infernal Souls and Baron throws. Oh my. Game's not over yet, but Hawks surely have the advantage. But Burning Core at least haven't been going quietly into the night.
I haven't just yet. Then where were you when Burning Core and the Hawks played a 70-minute game, including the pause? As it stands, though, I mean, as it stands, Burning Core is still not out of it. There's a GA onto Zenit, and that's going to make things difficult, right? But Yuhi has 4.5 items. That's 80% crit with the Lord Dominates Regards, now also having crit too from the item.
As well.
The item changes have it, and the Imperial Mandate coming in from Proud, very important. From the Gragas being able to add bits and pieces of damage across that team. But honestly, Yuhi can nuke this Victor, potentially take the GA very early away from Zenit. If the right combo comes across toss with the Gale Force and the Hawks carry step up too far, that is how Burning Core win the game, but it is still a slim win condition for them.
Yeah, and you've got to remember again, Infernal Soul, 4 Infernal Drakes with a Victor and a Kaiser itemed up to the gills. Hell, these guys aren't so much in gills, they're like in a massive, like, nuclear submarine.
Oh, the Infernal Soul Kaiser W hurts.
Ooh. My case in point right there. So much damage. And hell, there's a Lilia here throwing things out as well. Infernal Soul on Lilia sounds pretty rough as well. Ray Fark is going to try and split push away with the range advantage now. Nah surely has at least got that to his name. And if Burning Core can maybe find something around this relatively poorly played Baron dance that's been Hawks.
Oh, Hex Flash killing in Yuki's in danger. Sniffs it out.
Yeah, it does step away. And that will be that tier 2 in bot lane falling. Nah still shoving up there. Has got Mega Nah. Has got Teleport. Could maybe look to come in right now as Yuki does pull back the feathers. But no engage right now. And this tug of war between mid and Baron getting more and more precarious.
Afman doesn't have
Corpus
TP.
on the flank.
Actually, Rayfuck is teleporting in now. We've got Ease flying down at that river, and the Hawks peel off the Baron, get themselves a teleport advantage, and Afman now has a flank.
He does. Yuhi needs to be so careful. There they go. Apperman's in with the Ruthless Predator. He's in the back end, and the feathers come through, but there's no route to be found. Goes golden to Apperman, but that's a decent cast. But they brought the Crocodile back. It's been this way before. Kaiser, Killer Instincts in. Zenith gets Yuhi. And that is massive. Tamsinara is huge. It's decent, but there's no follow-up. It's too late. It's not enough, and the Hawks find far. Crab Rave from the Hawks get players, and they will look to try and end this game.
I think they'll have to this time. There's nothing left from the Burning Core engine to try and stop this Hawks push. They don't have a Shockwave. Ray Farkey 1v1ing Tussle, who still has Azonias, by the way, uses it now. The Infernal Soul making this fight a bit more even than they want. Ray Farkey takes the kill, but loses the game. It's a Pyrrhic victory.
It is indeed. The Nexus Towers are under siege. There's no way Ray Farkey gets back in time. And GG at 45 minutes into the game. Hawks will finally close this one out. Take a breath, ladies and gentlemen. The game is done. Hawks win their first game of the year. It was a bloody close one, though.
It was. We had to fight for it. We had to fight through the pause, keep your mental strong. And now we are left picking up the pieces as the Hawks do go 1-0 in their first week.
Alas, though, we are going to go to a quick break while we collect some of our thoughts, and we'll be back with an analyst desk very, very soon. Go nowhere. We'll be back in a few.
Good job with the break, lads. Good job with the break, by the way.
Possibly. I don't even know if I've got it updated, dude. I have none of the, I have none of the files, dude.
But you got 3 days. You got 3 games. Well, 1 game really.
Okay.
Well, 2 games. 1 game, 2 game at least. Yeah. Right. Talking about this game. I'll be honest, guys. We can just kind of index hard on Dasher getting super fed in the early game, and then I feel like the best thing to do would be to index on the main 3 fights or the 3 clips that I have highlighted, which basically are just the team fights. The one where it looks like Burning Core the Hawks well and truly putting the dirt to them. Burning Core getting that Baron and going, oh, maybe there's a chance. And then no, there wasn't because the Dragon, I feel like is the way that we probably want to run this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hugely, yeah.
Yeah, well, do what I can. Yeah.
You got like a 10-minute pause as well, so we can help you. I can help you in the pause, mate.
Because again, I've got like nothing set up on Streamlabs basically.
Yeah.
It's more like it's just settings and stuff I don't have. It's basically.
Don't worry about it,
We'll,
mate.
we'll work it out. Work it out. It's fine. Yeah. When do you need to leave for UKEL? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll find out. Mhm.
Yeah. This is how I think one of the game, like what the V3 Sengoku game had a pause, and I think the Rascal DFM versus V3 had a pause. So we might be getting another one from the Hawks if Zenit's computer is potato. Or like over 35 minutes. Like the pause went longer than than the game had gone, and I was like, fuck it, I'm going for a coffee. Because I was like, you guys have done the chrono break. Why are we waiting here? Like when I sent that to you guys, I was like, we're probably gonna go back in my head in like the next 5 minutes or so. No. Nice suit. Nice suit. Again, good work on the pause, guys. I was trying to feed you stuff, but that was just this is our first game. That's the fucked up thing. Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Des Mass One Nightmare. Initialize over on the other side, gentlemen. That's maybe the longest pause you've ever had to deal with, and of course, it's the first game back. Welcome back,
Heck yes.
Nuts.
That was a rough pause, but I think you both did very well. And honestly, on the side of our players to deal with a pause like that, to come back and still show a pretty amazing game, even after the pause, we had multiple points where I've clipped at least 3 times. Let's start off, however, before the pause happened, gentlemen, and let's talk about the man in the mid lane, Dasher. Before coming into this, he had had 6 games on the Victor, never won with the Victor. That was originally over in the Challenger Series over in Korea, before he played 2 games of it over in the LJL in 2019. Spring split, and finally he's got his victory, and he looked strong in this game, didn't he, Nightmare?
I think the thing for me is that Dasher on the Victor managed to get himself involved in the early game, which works really well with Victor's new passive, gets a load of different items, huge amounts of gold, gets those upgrades early, made himself an impact in the early game, which is not something you often say about Victor.
Oh, no, that is definitely not something you say about a Victor at any stage of the imagination. I mean, come on, Initialize, you clearly have something to say, so go on, go.
Well, it's just in terms of the way it works was like obviously Victor is still Victor, if you know what I mean. Like if he doesn't do anything, he just gets to farm. He will still hit his item breakpoints. He'll still get to farm his way up through his passive. If he does get those kills in the early game, if he does get those involvement, it's just compounded by the passive now. So the fact he did get those 2 early kills and then got in a team fight where he ends up at 5-0-1, really monstrous for him.
Yeah, I remember on the cast Nightmare, you were explaining how Glorious Evolution, its rework, had worked, and part of that was because he just hit that max point so early on into the game, right? What does that actually do for a Victor?
It means that you get wave clear much quicker because you get your E upgrade, you get like your Q upgrade much. Yeah, the E and the Q are the first 2, which like tend to be the most important. In fact, in previous methods, we had like Victor stopping at two upgrades and then going to complete another item. Of course, that kind of changed when, well, obviously with this rework, it definitely changed. But it means that with Phase Rush, with like boots, 10 stack Medjais, and then having your Q upgrade too, you're very hard to pin down, and that's why Dasher didn't die this game. Well, that's one of the many reasons why he didn't die this game.
One of the many reasons, beside the fact that his positioning was impeccable, this game didn't die, ended going 7-0-5. And at the point where you brought up about around his Glorious Evolution and everything, this was when he was 5-1. What was really good to see from Dasher is he didn't keep taking a lot of the kills and pressure once he was already 1-2. Well, he was about 2k ahead at one point, doing a almost a 3k gold swing when he got all those kills. Huge momentum over into the mid lane. However, Initialize, I I think there definitely is a conversation to be had around Barons and the fumbles around them, and
Yes.
Dragon as well to a degree.
Yeah, I mean, there were two near Baron throws for the Hawks. We had the first one where they were sort of like trying to sneak it while Burning Core were kind of not aware it was going on. They were doing damage to it, but then Burning Core came in and get a 2-for-1, get Corporal, get... And it wasn't Dash, it was somebody else as well, and they get that one. And then there was one later on as well where Burning Core tried to turn around with Corporal, but Dasher gets chunked out before the fight. 3 people go down. Burning Core get the Baron off it as well, and Hawks kind of turn and burn or decision about whether to leave, whether to turn for the fight isn't quite there yet, and it nearly cost them this game.
Yeah, a huge part of that was Gadiadu landing a beautiful 3-man shockwave, I remember. Part of that, and then Tussle was getting comboed into that. Yuhi was able to get a huge amount of damage. Really important there, and I honestly thought maybe there's a chance because when the Baron buff will stop going down, we saw that the Dragon timer for that Dragon Soul was going to play out. I thought we were going to have a big fight. Well, Chimera, we didn't really have a big fight. It was a double TP Hawks play.
It was. I mean, I'm really not massively impressed with how the Hawks played around these big objectives, and this also includes that too. It felt like they should be once again using this Kai'Sa for the side lane plays rather than just hammering on these objectives time after time. Of course, they did end up team fighting their way through a couple of things and having Zenit eventually doing pretty good things in that late game too. But it felt like the Hawks were so fixated on this Baron that they ended up making the game a little harder for themselves, even with these TP plays.
They really did make it a little bit harder. And last quick point that I want to go before we have a break, because I imagine we're not going to have many long breaks from the official stream here.
Oh, no.
Zenit and Yuhi, obviously Zenit is brand new to the LJL, gets a win on their debut in the LJL, so they must be feeling very happy about that. Yuhi, obviously, slightly disappointing game, but I'll be honest, I thought he actually played okay this round. What are your guys' quick opinions about this?
So Zenit, very consistent this game. Some fabulous Kai'Sa ults, found some amazing team fights in that mid and late game. Got onto Yuhi particularly, and in those 1v1s, Kai'Sa just came out supreme. For Yuhi, yeah, exactly.
Rollback.
So Yuhi, on the other hand, we saw some good front foot play. My problem was that some of his back foot play, his kind of split decision making when he is getting jumped from multiple angles, wasn't as perfect. There was a few feather storms where I go, not sure you got the most out of that as you could. But definitely not a weakness in this game, I think, for you. He just wasn't necessarily the win condition, unfortunately.
Well, I think he was the win condition, just didn't work out. We saw that time when he
yeah.
almost killed Dasher at that one Baron play. Didn't work out, but still not a bad first game from Yuhi when we did have a lot of questions about them.
You really did. And gentlemen, that's going to conclude our first game coverage. We're going to go over to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be bringing you coverage of Crest Gaming Act facing off against Burning Core. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.